Welcome back to Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon, and it has come to my attention that filmmaker Drew Fortier, along with James L. Edwards and Douglas Esper, have been reported missing today. Details are scarce at the moment, but according to authorities, they were last seen 2 days ago in Canton, Ohio, where they were shooting a documentary on the disappearance of the homeless.
I'm so confused.
Oh, it's all going to make sense. You're going to get such a huge kick out of this.
No, you're not.
Come on now. What's happening? Good to see everybody. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles live once again. Live from the zombie apocalypse in New York City. That's right. Sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chacho's Tacos, and Generation Records. What's going on in there, huh? What's happening in Italy, Fabrizio? All right. I miss Italy. Little Freeman, my man, you getting ready for the next show, bro? And listen, if you knock yourself out on the dance floor this time, I'm going to drag your ass up the stairs and throw you out on the street. It's okay, man. I love you, bro. You know, I can't be mad at you, Little Freeman. You were having a good time at the hardcore punk show, right? Believe me. What's up in London, Rob? Come on. Go ahead, London. John Harmon, what's Gajewski, my man. Okay. Wow, we got some Italians watching the show today, huh? What's the occasion? What's happening in Sweden, huh? How my Swedish girls behaving over there, all right? Good. Yes, monster bass player on the show today. Very excited about today's guest. Very excited. You know, I want to say this about today's guest. We bring people on the show to talk about what's happening these days and keep it positive and moving in a forward direction. So we're not going to bring this guy on here today to do the history of Megadeth or to drill him about stuff like that. You want to hear that crap, you know, listen to the other podcasts and stuff like that. Let's keep it forward thinking today. Let's talk about all the cool stuff he's doing now and let's move forward, man. I'm not interested in rehashing people's personal problems and stuff like that. This show's never been about that, and you know that. So be respectful today, you know, with our guest. I know you will. We have the best audience in the world. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that. What's happening, Ray Hogan up in Connecticut? Metal Thrashing Mad Sunday. Hello, Drew, Steve, and Sid. Thank you for this great show. I'm thankful. Love you guys. Yo, I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. You know? Yes, we are here to make a new friend. That's right. Yep. I know. We got good people, man. We got good people. You know what? I want to mention the next show coming up. Speaking of which, this Wednesday, a bit of a notorious figure coming on the show. And that is Mark Nichol from MAD Tour Management, an old school thumper from Berlin, Germany. Got Agnostic Front over there, Hatebreed, Madball, Biohazard, Sick of It All. You know, this guy has a rich history, a big lover of New York hardcore. He's in my New York Hardcore Chronicles film. Hey, Whitney, it's been a minute. Good to see you, Whitney. I hope you're well. So, yeah, old school skinhead thumper from Berlin, Germany, coming on the show next. So thank you, buddy. Hey, G-Man. What's up, G-Man? G-Man from the Cro-Mags checking. Yo, we got to get you on the show, G-Man. You know you're welcome to come on. In the meantime, what's going on with this guy here?
What's up?
What we have here
It's a failure to communicate. How's everybody doing?
You know who we just scored on the show? Charlie Benante from Anthrax.
Yes.
We got to put a flyer together.
I'm on it.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a side trip show because Charlie's coming on the show and we're doing a Jaws episode because Charlie is an avid Jaws the movie fan. So he is like a psycho Jaws fan. He owns Jaws memorabilia and everything. So We're going to bring Charlie on and we're going to talk Jaws the movie.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Listen, man, how much Anthrax do we need to talk? Let's talk about, yeah, right. Blabbermouth headline, right. No shit.
Do you know that I got in trouble on Instagram because a friend of mine was fishing and he's holding up the fish and I quoted Quint and I said, I'll find him for 3, but I'll catch him and kill him for 10. Ooh. And they deleted my comment because I said I'll catch him and kill him.
You know what's weird on Facebook when I go on to the old school hardcore kids Facebook page? Sometimes it gives me a warning that it might be like child pornography or something. Yeah.
Is it the word hardcore?
Hardcore kids.
Oh, yeah. Be careful.
Old school hardcore kids. Yep. Yeah, Jaws, man. We're gonna do it up with Charlie.
Oh, classic.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right, so here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's have some fun today. It's Shout Out Sunday. Let's get loose with it. I got a good feeling about today's show. Hey, JoJo, what's happening?
JoJo.
Yeah, IG probably deleted your account, Hegs, because you talk out the side of your neck constantly and say a lot of dumb shit. So they probably deleted your account, dude.
That Hegs is nothing but trouble.
Hey, Hegs, are you ready for the we got a big show coming up with The Take. Anyway, here we go. Photo of the day. Wrong answers only, please. Here we go. Bim, scala bim. Wrong answers only, please. Here you go. Let's see. Let's see what we got here. Mr. Hardcore, shut up. Yeah, Rat Bones. Nobody wants you on Instagram anyway, bro. You know, relax.
There he is.
Okay, is it Spinal Tap? Oh. Is it New York Dolls? Good one. Kind of. Is it Ghost? Is it Morbid Angel? Is it Loudness? Kind of looks like Loudness, right?
Yeah, a little. Actually, yeah. The logo gives it away.
Is it Bjork? Is it Twisted Sister? Is it Kiss? Close. Is it Girls' School? Good one. Girls. Red lips, fingertips. Girls. Let me see. There's another one, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. This friggin' guy, man. Here's another one. Boom. What do we got? Is it Rat? But I will say this, though, about Rat. I saw Rat open up for these guys here at the Beacon Theater in New York City in like 83 or 84 or something. On their, it was amazing. It was a really good show. Is it Pantera the early days? That's kind of funny. Is it LA Guns? Is it Faster Pussycat? Is it Cher? Close. Kind of close. Is it Ron Jeremy? Is it Manowar? Manowar. Is it Big Mac Crew? Good one.
You know, but before we say who it is, when I was at this show, a guy next to me said, the singer reminds me of a cross between Sam Kinison and Stevie Nicks.
Listen, say what you want about that singer, man, but in his
He's still
heyday,
hanging, you know?
he was great.
Took
All
a bad
right.
fall recently, too.
Oh, that's right. He brought. Okay. Right answers only, please.
Come on now, people.
Is it Greg the Hammer Valentine? That's probably the best one.
That's good.
That is funny.
That's good.
Funny, not funny. Funny. Is it Celtic Frost? Is it the Pussycat Dolls? Yo, I saw the Pussycat Dolls. Let me tell you a Pussycat Dolls story. I saw the Pussy. I don't know. I saw the Pussy. We were next door when Scott Koenig was alive back in the day. We were at the Rainbow, and the Pussycat Dolls played the Roxy. And afterwards, we were hanging out, and this is when Carmen Electra was in the Pussycat Dolls. And somebody introduced me to Carmen Electra, and I was gobsmacked. I didn't know that they created human beings that beautiful. I was just, she was staggeringly beautiful. All right, just saying. That was my Pussycat Dolls story, you know?
Nothing wrong with that.
Hold on. Yeah. Is it Motley Crue? Is it Motley Big Mac Crew? Is it The Crew? Is it Motley Crue? Is it Motley Crue? Is it Tina Turner? All right.
Well, you know it, and I know it, and this is Motley Crue. This was the supposed farewell tour back in 2013. They played Joan. This is Jones Beach, and
Jonas Beach.
Right. Rather than say anything negative about maybe how bad the sound was for them that night, I will say the opening that they had Alice Cooper open up for them, and he blew the place to pieces. And having Alice Cooper only do an hour set was just like all killer, no filler. And then they came on and they were kind of sloppy, and you know, it looked cool and all, but I was never a huge Crue fan. And you know, I mean, Vince Neil has, you know, he owes nothing to nobody, and he's had some issues with his, you know, with himself over the years. But, you know, I mean, Motley Crue has already etched their place in history. You know, my friends just saw him in M3 when he fell off of the stage. I mean, that was just recently. And fortunately, I think he's doing okay, you know?
Yeah, I've fallen off. I fell off a stage and got hurt once, man. It sucks because you don't see it coming. You're like, you know, you fall. Yeah.
I just think that they had a big deal about a farewell tour, and they waited like 2 years and came back. I thought that was really kind of shitty.
Yeah, well,
you know,
they tried to come back.
I know they caused COVID, I think.
Yeah.
COVID was a reaction to them breaking their contract.
Yeah, you know.
But
listen, I saw Crue, like I said, at the Beacon with my brother. We were like sixth row center. It was Rat opening for the Beacon, and it was what was that one? Shout at the Devil tour. It was great.
Well, didn't you see them at US Festival too?
I saw the US Festival. They played at the US Festival, and they were great.
That's prime Motley Crue right there.
You know who loved Motley Crue and kind of turned me on to Motley Crue back in the day was Tesco V from the Meatmen. He's the first,
wow,
because everyone was like, you know, they suck, they're posers, and he was like, no, they're awesome. And I was, all right, maybe they are.
You know what? Those first couple of records.
No, Motley Crue never played A7. No, that never happened. You know,
no, their first couple of records you can't argue with. You know, to me, after Shout at the Devil, I'm done.
Too Fast for Love and Shout at the Devil.
Yeah.
Yo, Theater of Pain. Yo, you know what? Yo, you know what? Hold on a second.
Didn't like Theater of Pain.
Yo, I'm stepping up for Motley Crue right now. I'm not mad at Motley Crue. They did some great records. They had a great career. You know,
First two,
I'm not gonna
were
hate on
classic.
Motley. Yo, Nikki Sixx, great guy. I've met Nikki, great guy. I got nothing but love for Motley Crue. How does that sound? All right,
I like that 6 a.m.
haters,
stuff.
let the
Actually,
haters
too.
hate.
You know,
Yeah,
He's-
Bob Riley says, met them at Record Town, shout at the Devil Tour. Damn
Wow.
straight. Mick Mars got to be like 80 years old now, bro. Dude. You want to shout anybody out?
No, this is great, man. I'm just very excited for this one. Really honored to have this man on.
Yeah.
And I got a good front row seat here. So, you know,
Okay,
you know what? I will shout out. JoJo's in the house. I'm going to shout out
Who are you
Jonathan.
going to shout out? Are you going to shout out the devil?
Dun,
Dun, dun. Shout.
Is it Satan? Shout at the devil. That's hysterical.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? Okay. How about the Motley Crue record they did with John Corabi? Great record. Great record.
Yeah.
Fight Me. I love that record.
Well, because they finally had a guy who could really sing.
I mean,
you know?
yeah, is it a Motley Crue record? That record's great. No, Brides of Destruction was Nikki. That wasn't.
Yeah,
Mick
that was
Mars.
just
I
Nikki.
I almost did a video for Brides. I almost directed a music video, and I was talking to them back in the day. I'm on a holiday, a hooligan's holiday. My girl
That was a
Madison.
good
My
record.
girl Madison was in that video. Anyway, hey, love you, bro. Talk to you soon.
You got it.
Peace in the Middle East. All right, what's happening? This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Reel, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Generation Records, and located in Corpus Christi, Texas, Chacho's Tacos opened their doors in 2001. Home of the almighty Chacho's Taco. They cook up an incredible home-style Tex-Mex food, and this month they're celebrating their 20th anniversary. They've been supporting underground music since the beginning, and in their own words, not mine, in their own words, we ain't stopping anytime soon. Touring bands. They play Corpus Christi, swing by and get a home-cooked meal at Chacho's Tacos. We got you. The underground scene will never die. Please follow us on Facebook or on Instagram. Come on now, New York Hardcore Comics. They opened in 2013, selling comic books, punk rock and hardcore memorabilia, toys, statues, skateboard decks, tapes, vinyl, and all things horror. We love helping bands push their demos and new tracks, so please stop by and drop off your new music, even if your band sucks. We have in-store events like Magic the Gathering and Warhammer tournaments, plus meet and greets with bands and some live performances. Open 7 days a week and shipping worldwide. Find us online through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and eBay. Located at 117 Main Street in Dodge River, New York. www.newyorkhardcorecomics.com. Want to mention a couple of upcoming shows as well. Just real quick before we bring our guest on. Before we get our guest on. Coming up, a Wednesday, December 8th. Mr. Michael McDermott from Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, the Bouncing Souls, and Smurfy's Law. Sunday, December 12th, This is Boston, Not LA, 20th anniversary celebration with Bob Sensi from Jerry's Kids, Bob Hatfield from the FUs, and Brian Betzker from Jerry's Kids and Gangrene. Sunday, December 19th, You Asked For It, You Got It. Kevin Seconds of 7 Seconds coming on. And then Wednesday, December 22nd, Mike Bromberg from SFA and Go, a.k.a. Mike Bullshit on the show. There is no show a week from today because we're doing a Bowery Electric show. It is Vinny Stigma's birthday bash with The Take, Antidote NYHC, celebrating the release of Scarred, Enziguri, featuring Davey Hooligan, The Non-Residents, come on now, and Fire is Murder with Steve Gallo. So that's coming up a week from today. There is no show a week from today. I will be on stage screaming my brains out. You're welcome to come down and check it out. So that said, let me just make sure everybody's okay. Yeah, Rampage Mosh Crew represent most definitely. Is there a cover charge, bro? Come on, bro. There's never a cover charge at my shows, man. They're always free. They're always all ages. This is the 19th one we've done. Where you been living, RS70? If it's free, it's for me, man. You know what I'm saying? Come on now. What's the new CBGBs? Well, this is a block away from CBGBs. Yeah, we'll get Antidote NYHC up there. That said, here we go. Hello from Dresden. What's up in Dresden? I just saw a documentary about Dresden, man. Woo! Anybody still living there in Dresden? Man, we leveled Dresden in World War II. Man, Dresden. Dresden was a beautiful city. Beautiful, beautiful architecturally, beautiful city. And we and the British leveled it at the end of World War II. And some feel it was totally unnecessary. Anyway, hello from Poland. All right, come on, let's bring our guest on. Enough silliness. Here we go. Today's guest is an American bassist, author, and film producer hailing from the North Star state of Minnesota. He is known for his work with the bands Temple of Brutality, F5, Hail, Altitudes and Attitude, Killing Machine, Metal Allegiance, Avian, Soulfly, Necro, Ministry, Megadeth, and currently the Lucid. Please welcome, coming at us from lovely Scottsdale, Arizona, Mr. David Ellefson. Buddy.
Dudes, what's happening? How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, man?
Just sitting here enjoying the show backstage.
We have a good time here, you know?
Watching you guys yuck it up. Actually doing a little practicing while I was sifting through some basses here, doing a little riffing.
Are you still a Jackson guy?
I am. Yep, I am. In fact, this was the last signature model we rolled out. I should say the latest signature model we rolled out, but it's a replica of the very first bass that Grover Jackson made for me back in 1980. I think it was late 86, early 87. And I mean, and it's funny because even though the company had been sold from Grover Jackson to a company in Dallas, and then Fender acquired it in probably the late 2000s, like the late 90s, I think is when they got it. So by the early 2000s, Fender had gotten a hold of it.
Was that your original guy that pulled you in there, or was there a
no? So it's interesting. So Dave and I drove out to see Grover, and I believe it was his wife who ran the shop, and it was out in off the I-10 in LA, East LA. San Dimas, I think, which is why some of the guitar models of Jackson are called San Dimas, because they're kind of a throwback. So that was, I mean, this was essentially a concert bass, which was their only bass they had. And it's funny because at the time, you know, Jackson was like a guitar company who also had a bass, right? It was kind of one of those things, you know, and
it was a sidebar.
Yeah, but I liked them because, you know, the body's a little smaller than a traditional Fender. It's definitely a more high performance instrument, right? You know, active electronics, smaller body, which, you know, I'm 5'9", so I'm not like super tall. So
I know this isn't the same model. This is a different one.
That is funny. You know what? I have that exact bass right here, just by chance. That's so funny. I pulled this one out of storage because I've got a couple of storage units with a bunch of stuff in it, and that is actually a one-off. I had a 4 and a 5 string made of that. I think that was actually from the Gods of Metal in Milan, Italy, where that picture was taken. Best I remember. I only played it a couple times on stage, and so that is the latest USA signature model that I have from Jackson, and it's in a quicksilver, like a matte quicksilver color. But that one, I had to make me a 4 and a 5 in matte black with the white binding.
That's a beautiful bass.
Yeah, I love it. And it plays great. You know, I kind of relegated it more to a backstage tuning room bass because of it's got a different style to it. That when I play it, I tend to want to play Let me see. I'm going to pick it up. I tend to want to play
Going big right off the bat.
You know, they all have a different song in them. You know what I mean? You know, it's not even tuned. In fact, it's dusty as shit. But it's got a great, like, very low action to it. So I just kind of, you know, every instrument makes you play a little bit different, you know. So that silver one, and then this 5-string.
Let's see that.
Is the that silver I had, and then this one. These are the latest models that we rolled out. So this one.
Now that's a 5-string.
Yes, this is the 5-string complement to this 4-string, basically, right? And I created this bass. It was the first 5-string Jackson ever had, and I created it to play the Megadeth song "Hangar 18" because I recorded it with a 4-string. I just dropped, you know, I did drop D, like 2 years before Ellefson Chains introduced us to drop D. I did drop D, right? And then I tuned it up to play the back half of the song. But then we go on tour. I'm like, oh shit, I got to like figure out how to do this. And I hated doing dropped. Like I hated like the
what was it? They used to have the click, like drop it.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I never. Yeah. It's not my thing.
What they called that, a slingshot, or it was?
Yeah, a hip shot. It's a hip shot. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I don't like them. It's just not for me. You know, because I'm kind of formally trained on the instrument that when I see a D, I want to hear a D. When I see a D, I don't want to have it a C. You know what I mean?
Hear you. Yeah.
Bugs me out. I can't handle it. So for me, you know, so I created this bass. So, you know, the hanger, you know, that I could actually play it. You know, I could play it there it actually is. You know, I could play it properly, right? And play it in a proper, you know, how I see the strings. I want to hear those notes. It's kind of like people that have perfect pitch. My daughter has perfect pitch. And probably the first time I was introduced to perfect pitch was Jordan Rudess. So there's the silver. That's the main signature model. So the black one, actually, that's I think that was from Chicago Open Air in 2000.
Do you primarily play the 5-string now?
I do pretty much. Well, look, in Megadeth I did, yeah, because I had over the years through the 90s, I started to have so many more songs that would occasionally just go down and grab a low note, you know, even Countdown to Extinction, right? You know what I mean? Like, no, the Japanese girl speaking, and I just grabbed that low D. So for one note in the song, I would need, you know, that low note. So that's why I started, even in like, you know, Ashes in Your Mouth, right there, right there's that one note. So for one note on a bunch of those songs, I needed that lower, you know, that lower string. So I just kept the 5-string saddled up more often, and I just began to just kind of play it all the time, you know.
What is this?
Oh yeah. So that was a photo shoot. Me and Frank Bello were doing a photo shoot. God, where was that? Was that over in Queens? I forgot where we did that. That was me and Frank Bello. You mentioned it earlier. We have our band Altitudes and Attitude, which is very much not a thrash band. But
when I did my homework for the Frank Bello show, I got stuck on Altitudes and Attitudes. I enjoyed it so much. I just kept listening to it over and over again. I really enjoyed it, man.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It's
and you know, as you were probably, I don't know, were you doing something around his book, around his new book? Yeah. So here's the cool thing about that. So, well, real quick, I'll talk about the bass. So the bass is a 10-string. So what a 10-string is it's basically a 5-string with the little octave string next to it, right? So because I play 5 most of the time, Jackson and I created the first ever 10-string bass. So that's what it is. And the headstock, of course, we had to try to figure. I couldn't use this angled headstock because the tension with 10 strings would just make this thing just go bonkers. It would just be gnarly, right? So I like this angled headstock because I like the tension of the, the longer string over the nut here creates a, and we don't bend too much with a bass. But if they're going to ever add a little vibrato, that tension is great. It's why for me, I don't like the reversed headstock, right? So, because in that case, the E, or in my case, the B string would be the longer string if this was
Right.
reversed, right?
Yeah,
And even on guitars, I don't like it because in guitars, you're bending, especially if you're playing lead solos, you're bending the E and the B string probably the most, right? The E, B, and the G, you're bending the most. And when the tension is shorter across the nut, it actually makes the string tighter here on the fingerboard. So I really like this Jackson design where,
It doesn't have a tendency, those in that setup, it doesn't have a tendency to go out of tune.
Not at all. It doesn't. Here's the thing with this. Okay, you can do the locking bridge like a Floyd Rose or a Kahler or something. Obviously, then it locks it and it won't. But even on these, as long as, and especially with guitars, if you put graphite across the nut here, it'll just let the string glide and then it won't get hung up. Because that's when it goes out of tune, is when the string gets caught, and then it has no choice but to either bend or break, right? So. Yeah. As long as there's a little bit of graphite and it kind of keeps it's fine. And again, in bass, we're not really, we're not really doing too much bending and soloing and stuff like that. But that 10 string, I made that bass because on the Altitudes and Attitudes stuff, we did a lot of, I played a lot of 8-string bass. When we were in the studio recording, ESP, who Frank was affiliated with at the time, had sent over to us in the studio an 8-string bass. And like a lot of instruments, I'll buy them just on the spot because they've got a song in them. They work really well for what I'm doing. And so that little 8-string bass that ESP sent over, I bought it immediately. I called them, I swiped the card, I just bought it, right? And it was, and I have it here somewhere. Not in the house. I've got like 20 instruments in the house. In fact, now that we talk about it, I need to go find it because I don't know where it is.
Has that ever happened? Like, have you ever had a panic attack about what happened to that one bass? You ever fall into like a panic attack?
It does. Well, and it's funny because I don't know where my very first bass. My mom bought it for me. It was a Gibson EBO, beautiful bass, which is a kind of a short scale. To this day, I don't remember what happened to it. I don't remember trading it, selling it, ever leaving my possession, yet I no longer own it. So I have no idea where it went.
That sucks. Because it has sentimental value,
Well, at the time, look, I bought it. I begged my mom to buy it because I was a big Kiss fan. On the back of the Kiss records, it says that they use Gibson guitars and Pearl drums because they want the best, which I now know was a product endorsement, right?
Right.
But at the time, I wanted it because I wanted to sound like Kiss, So I get this bass, and it's an EBO, which has a very thick. It's got just the one pickup on it, and there's no treble, so it's like. So can't even get it to sound like that, but it's like this muffled right tone. And I was like, that doesn't sound like Firehouse off Kiss Alive at all. Like, what the hell's wrong with this bass, right? And I later learned, kind of that's the tone of that bass. But that, the EBO and the EB1 and the EB3, those became very popular basses. In recent years. In fact, one of my favorite bass players, Bob Daisley, who was in Ozzy's band, played bass and wrote a lot of Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman and many other records. But his bass playing, especially on those first couple records, is just godlike, And he apparently used, I think, an EB. I think it was an EBO, and EBO. It's weird because it had a kind of one pickup, and then there was a version of it that it had another kind of bridge pickup, which he must have used because that would give more of that, up. Here's up in the front pickup.
Bob Daisley was in Uriah Heep too, and and
Yeah.
Rainbow. Yeah, he had a
And Uriah Heep.
yeah. I love Uriah Heep.
Yeah, he did the Abominog record, which is
Great record.
That was kind of like when I was in high school. Abominog came out. And,
Hey, Jay Keynes asks, whatever happened to the BC Rich Mockingbird?
well, probably the one you're thinking of, Jay, the one with the fighter plane on it, the fighter jet that I used in the P-Cells video that we recorded, that we filmed over at Lemoore in Brooklyn. That one is actually in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we did a big auction on Megadeth.com in the late 90s and sold off a ton of gear that we had just sitting around. And that bass was one of them. And, had I known, I sold off a bunch of my original Jacksons, the BC Riches. I sold them all off. And I sold them to fans. They meant more to a fan. And I don't like to just hoard basses. I have a lot of instruments that I've just sort of acquired and accumulated over the years. I'm not a collector. I only buy or gain things that I use that have some, purpose in my life.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, when I'm done with them, I don't mind handing them off to someone else, buy them, sell them, donate them, whatever, So that one, a fan bought it and put it in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in my honor and in Megadeth's honor. It was the first piece of heavy metal memorabilia at all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This fan was so pissed that there was nothing about Megadeth and nothing about heavy metal. So he put it in there. It's on a consignment. And then from there, it started now he's got Dimebag Darrell's guitar in there. There's this whole heavy metal exhibit. And it was because that fan put my bass in there, which I thought was pretty cool.
Hey, let's take the horse where it leads us here. And let's jump. You mentioned Lemoore. Let's get crazy. Being it's a New York-based show, and we have a lot of people that watch the show that remember Lemoore. Any Lemoore memories, or
Sure.
tell it.
Of course, I mean, dude, it's so funny. So I've got one. Keep that picture. That's great because I'm looking at it. So that's got Kix, Faith No More. So I have one that has Ace Frehley or like Frehley's Comedy or something on it. Right? There's these pictures out there.
Sure.
Okay, so Lemoore, so Slayer and Megadeth, we did a lot of stuff together early on. We had the same booking agent who would book us on stuff. So I remember in late 95 or late 85 rather, which would have been kind of the tail end of Killing Is My Business for us. Slayer and Megadeth went out and we performed at Lemoore, and then we played in Trenton. There's a place called City Gardens. We played
of course. Yes.
Yeah, then went home.
Yeah.
And then so we would play there again. I guess probably for the P-Cells tour, we filmed the P-Cells video there with a New York artist named Robert Longo. Had been hired by Tim Carr, who had signed us to Capitol.
Of course.
And so we went in there. We're on tour. And we went in, we got there early, we sound checked, we did the camera blocking and everything that they needed to do. And then we shot the video in the afternoon. And then we, did a run through of, they filmed it, of course, when we played it that night at the show. And, funny thing is our West Coast A&R, Tom Wally, who then I think now is the president of Warner Brothers, he got us he got us some free shoes from Nike, right? Like kind of like
that's all it took.
So that's why at the beginning of the P-Cells video, you see us walking across the stage with our Nikes on, because it was sort of like our intentional, like, oh shit, we better show our Nikes off, so that we can get more free shoes. We're just a poor little heavy metal band that day.
Bro, look what I just found in my archives. Get a load of this one. Hold on. Bam.
Dude.
There you go. In my
look at
archive.
That's it. Yeah, with Ace Frehley. God, look at that, man. Okay, so we played 2 nights?
No, May 29th and 30th, it was Megadeth and Possessed.
So that's what I'm saying. So we played 2 nights.
You played 2 nights, and then Cities, which was a Lemoore favorite. And then the 26th and the 27th was Ace Frehley. And then the 18th was Nazareth. Woo!
Dude, I would have seen all those bands. I would have
seriously, man.
Gosh. Yeah. Too bad I was on tour. I would have stayed and watched all those bands. But I'm a huge Nazareth fan, and of course, Ace Frehley.
I saw one of those Ace Frehley shows. It was unbearably packed in there. You know, when it's so crowded that you can't even enjoy the show.
Totally. God, so we played 2 nights. We're more popular than I thought. So obviously we have a history there. So May 29th and 30th, that probably would have been in probably in 1987. That probably would have been after we filmed because we would have done the Peace Cells video in 86, which is the year the record came out, and when we had signed to the label and everything. So which is funny, and if I can bring this up, so our mutual friend Michael Alago, which of course you directed his movie, Who the Fuck Is That Guy, right? So Michael was the first one to chum the waters and court me and Dave, as Megadeth, to possibly sign to Elektra Records, and he had just signed, of course, the mighty Metallica a couple years earlier. So Michael was the guy with the heavy metal ears, and he chummed the waters, and then that's what got Capitol to the bargaining table. I guess MCA, I think, it even tendered an offer.
He loved you guys. Still does.
Oh,
he says to me always, he fucking loved you guys. But I guess sort of, back then it was like you already signed Metallica to Elektra, right? And I think it's fair to say that you guys found a really good home with Tim over at Capitol, right? I
think it went the way it was supposed to. But again, shout out to Michael because of Michael. And, that's like a lot of things in life. It only takes one. It's like if you don't have a date and finally some girl just decides she's going to be on your arm, now all of a sudden all the other girls want you. You know what I mean? It's the same thing, right?
Right. Yeah,
it's easier to get a girlfriend when you got a girlfriend, I guess, right? And it's the same thing. It's like easier to get a record deal when you've got others interested. And Michael was the first date. You know what I mean? He really was. God bless him.
He loved you guys.
He did, and he's still obviously a wonderful friend and mutual friend here on this podcast. So.
Yeah, he's like family to me. He talks to my mom more than I do at this point. He does. Did you call your mother? It's like he talks to my mom more than me. Hey, let's pull it back. Did you grow up in a musical household? How did you come up? How did music come into your life?
Kind of. So I grew up on a farm in Minnesota. So the Ellefson family farm has been in our farm since the late 1800s when the Ellefsons moved over from Norway. So I grew up on the farm, that same farmhouse that my dad actually grew up in. Yeah. So it's kind of third. So my dad, me and my brother, now my brother's kids. So third generation, of this house. So that's where I learned anything about music. So my mother had, I remember being really young. She had the Beatles 45, I Want to Hold Your Hand, but she also had some Motown records and was a big Elvis fan. She sang in the church choir, and she essentially was a nurse who, kind of retired out of it, stay home and raised me and my brother while my dad was outside, running the family farm. But she was the one who had the musical talent. I always say, with my dad, I'd get in the car and turn up the radio. He'd get in the car and turn it down so we could talk. You know what I mean? He was the communication guy. Whereas my mom, I'd hear things like Neil Diamond, who's probably still my favorite guy. Some people like Sinatra. Some people like, kind of their icons from that era.
Everybody's got that guy. Like,
kind of that oldie guy. Yeah. For me, Neil. And I heard it, man. It's funny. I was going to go to see Neil Diamond some years back. And for some reason I couldn't. I don't know if I got sick or maybe I was out of town or something. I think I went out of town or something came up. And I never did see him, but I got to see him the year we won our Grammy in 2017. He was there and he's just sang like a quick little verse of Sweet Caroline. It was this kind of, thing that he was doing. And just to see him and to hear him sing, because I think he's retired now due to health issues. And just to, I finally got to see and hear Neil. And that voice, I just love the guy. I can't say enough about him. So he's my guy from that day. But my parents bought a Wurlitzer organ, which was like this cutting edge, kind of thing. My mom had played piano growing up. And so I learned I had took organ lessons from like the church organist. And so, organ is treble clef on the right hand, it's bass clef on the left hand, and it's also bass clef on the foot pedals. So I always kind of likened it's kind of like playing a drum kit, it's like you've kind of got to synchronize this stuff. So I learned to read music. A couple years later, in 5th grade, I took up tenor saxophone in the orchestra band. And then at age 11, I picked up the bass, that Gibson EBO my mom bought me. I started to play guitar about a year later. I bought a little Hondo 2 Stratocaster guitar, and we had a farmhand from New Jersey who actually had a Rogers drum set, so we let him set it up in the house, and he kind of taught me how to play drums. I mimicked that. So
was there a social network out there on the farm, and like how did you meet? I mean, I guess school and stuff, right?
Dude, I invited the church guitar player out, like, hey, you want to jam? You know what I mean? I was like, whatever you know, I'll play.
How old were you?
My 3rd grade band teacher, turns out he played electric bass in the Navy band or something. So he loved my bass. So I took some lessons from him. Then when I got into middle school, into high school, we had the same band teacher, and I got called up. You know, it's funny. I was 12, and I'm getting called up by like 16-year-old guys to play in their band because I got good really quick because I was into it. I dedicated my whole life to it.
And you zeroed in on bass right off the bat.
Yeah, and
like,
bass.
I want to be a bass player.
Bass because I love the instrument, but I also love the role inside of rock bands. I mean, I wanted to be a fucking rock and roll musician, period. That was it. And because of, you know, it was certainly Geddy Lee was probably the most pronounced progressive musician of my era. Before him, of course, Chris Squire, things like that. But Geddy was kind of my guy. Yes, he was my sort of my yes, if you will, of my age group. And then I went out. Then as I got called in to play in jazz band. I mean, the jazz band, actually the bass player had quit this band at the 16-year-old, so I sort of got his gig. He also played bass in the jazz band, so I got his gig in the jazz band. I was picking up all his gigs in the little town of Jackson of like 3,000 people, right? So but anywhere I could go play, I did. I mean, I jammed with anybody and everybody. I mean, I learned everything from Proud Mary to Take the A Train, which is a swing band song, to Ted Nugent and Leonard Skinner. I mean, I played anything and everything I could frickin' jam on. So, and I think it's good. I mean, people ask me to give advice to people, and I always tell young people, it's like, first of all, take some lessons so you can not only learn your instrument, but you need to learn the language of music, you know, because it's a language. Like if we were talking about Dresden, Germany, you're going to go to Germany, learn some German. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're going to be a musician. Learn the language of music so you can talk to other musicians. You know, that's now your country you live in. So, and then play with people, go jam with people, because you learn. I don't know. I always learn so much more being in a room with other musicians, you know, of any level. And sometimes they're not the most advanced musicians, but sometimes I learn about me going, okay, how do I pull this together? Especially as bass player, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, guitar player's rocking, drummer's kind of weak, singer's good. All right, I got to kind of carve a line up the middle and sort of pull this thing together here because, and I've done that. I've played a lot of church gigs and things where it's, you know, some weekend warrior musicians, and it's like, all right, I'm a professional by trade. Let me get this thing together because
but also as we know, being in a band is not just about how proficient you are on the instrument. It's also if you you need to play with the other kids in the sandbox to a certain extent, and as much as in play, it's one thing to get in a room and play with people, but you also learn that you have to interact with people, and that's part of it too.
That probably the best point of the whole interview so far is that, it's like learn how to get along with others, and I think the role as a bass, the role of this instrument is that play nice with everyone in the playground, right? The drummer, the guitar player, turn down when the singer's playing, don't just railroad over them, let them breathe, be heard. And at the same time, it probably plays to our personalities as bass players. You know what I mean? Is that I think in order to play the instrument and understand that role, you kind of have to be that person. So I think Frank Zappa had said that some time ago, that like you can kind of tell a person's personality by the instrument they play.
That's interesting.
Right?
Are you a Zappa fan?
Not really. And not out of anything other than I just missed him. He was before my time. I got to know Dweezil. I love him. He's a fantastic player.
Have you crossed paths with Vi at all?
Yes, Vi, I have. Yep. When we did Metal Allegiance, he came up and he performed with us. And
Yeah.
you know, my favorite, probably the Flexible disc,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
That he did that.
Flexible and Flexible Leftovers are great.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. That, and then also the David Lee Roth Band with him and Bissonette and Billy Sheehan.
Those first two records, man. Wow.
And you know, a lot of that was because of how great Greg Bissonette is. You know, one thing I noticed, because I saw him at the Forum in LA, right when that record came out, that, what was it called? Eat 'em and Smile, I think, right?
Eat 'em and Smile, and the second one was Skyscraper.
So one thing about Bissonette is he kept meter going through the entire show. Even when Roth was doing his raps, you know, and he'd, you know, say whatever he was doing, Bissonette was back there always keeping time with like his hi-hat.
Yep.
There was always, even sitting in the back of the arena, I could hear it. Right? He'd always keep this. There was constant time flowing through the entire David Lee Roth show. And of course, it allowed for, you know, Roth to rap, Sheehan and Vi to go off and do their thing. And there was just constantly this meter. And I was so impressed by it. And I jammed once with Greg at a Bass Parade Live event. And he's like, you know, like me, he's like a Lutheran kid from the Midwest. I was from Wisconsin or something, right? And you know, it's just
his brother Matt played bass.
What's that?
His brother Matt played bass.
Yeah, exactly. And Matt, I didn't get to know Matt. I knew of him through Steve I's Joe Satriani's organization. You know, they spoke very highly of him, you know, that he could play pretty much anything you put in front of him. I mean, look, they're educated musicians, you know.
Yes,
They're some people like me, you have the heart to go do it. You just go out and start doing it. And along the way, continue to educate yourself. Other people go to school to become educated, and then they kind of go out into the world, either through college or whatever. And actually that was my intention when I moved to Hollywood right after high school, is I was going to go to the Musicians Institute. But I met Dave instead. He lived upstairs, and over a case.
Is that how that happened? He lived upstairs where you moved into?
Yeah.
Wow.
A few conversations, we formed Megadeth, and I blew school off. But you know, but I could already play. I mean, I could already play. And at that point, you know, look, if you're in the room, we already know you can play. So like, we're done. We're past all of that.
Right. Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, let's get the band going. And now, you know, when anybody who might be, you know, watching this that is in a band, you know, you can relate to this. Once you start a group, or your own solo career, whatever it may be, and you're gigging, you're out playing, and you're trying to make a living and be a professional, you know, playing becomes the thing that is the smallest part of your day. And in fact, you really have to struggle to find time to continue to write and do these things, because in the beginning, before there's managers and agents and all these things, you're spending so much time hustling, networking, out, you know, flyering, you know, now it's social media, and, you know, social media posts today are the equivalent of us nailing flyers to a telephone pole in the old days. Right.
Sure.
And that's just kind of, you know, what it is in order to get your name out. And, you know, the landscape is very different today. You know, it's almost impossible to start a band and get out and do that. Like, you know, the whole landscape is very different today than it was back when, you know.
Not that it's better or worse. It's just different.
It's just different. Yeah. And adaptability is a big part of that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Being able to adapt, right? I mean, how we did it in the Midwest. I mean, my dad helped me a lot, right? Not only did he help me get my own equipment, but we, you know, helped me get the band PA, dedicated a shed on our farm so we could rehearse, we could build the lighting rig, we could have the van and the trailer. I mean, I was going out weeknights, you know, gigging, playing ballrooms, you know, playing around the Midwest, you know.
That's awesome. That's awesome that your dad backed you as a teenager, that he backed your dream as a teenager. That's kind of rare, you know what
especially
I mean?
Because again, he was the guy who turned the music down. Like, he didn't relate to the music part of it, but he related to, my kid's got a passion, he's dedicated to it, I see him dedicating every waking minute of his life to it.
That's right.
I'm behind that, you know. So and I later learned, when he passed away in 1994, at his funeral, I talking to a lot of his friends who were kind of neighborhood friends. You know, they were talking about how, you know, he wanted to go to the University of Minnesota to become an architect, and he couldn't pursue that dream because he had to come home and take care of the farm. and do the business of running the farm. So I realized in me, he saw, hey, I'm going to help my son pursue a dream that I never got to pursue myself. And so absolutely super, super cool.
That's great. Hey,
Yeah.
we're skipping around, but let's jump in a little bit as far as, being that this is kind of a New York based, kind of show, and somebody kind of asked, and I think I'd be amiss not to touch on this. Do you remember being out on the road with Motorhead and the Cro-Mags?
Yeah, of course.
That's like people look back on that pretty fondly.
No, where was that? Was at okay? So interesting.
This is in San Bernardino. This one.
So funny. That's a show that never happened. And here's why. So we were supposed to. The Peace Cells album had just come out or was just coming out, and we were contracted to do 5 shows with Motorhead, and I guess probably the Cro-Mags were on them as well. And so we did, I think, 2 or 3 of them. We did Kaiser Auditorium in Oakland. I think we played San Diego, and then and for sure we played Santa Monica Civic Center. And it was fucked up because Pete Gill, who I had known from Saxon. All right, now where's that?
This is I don't see it in this one, but I see Cro-Mags, I see Dave. I see some of the Nuclear Assault.
Yeah, there's Dan Lilker. Yeah, I see.
Big Danny Lilker, but this is
it is. It's Nuclear Assault, and and a lot of beer, and probably we're all up to it. Well, again, and that's how we rolled in the day. Yeah. So back to the Motorhead thing. So it was Orgasmatron for Motorhead that was there,
and that was Pete Gill on drums.
Pete Gill. And they had from Saxon. Yes, exactly. And so I didn't come from Saxon, and Pete had these train tracks that went like, if this was the drum riser, and then Lemmy's mic was here, right, and then there's the stage, right. So he had these train tracks so he could drive out to basically the mic stand, do his drum solo, and then go back. It was a one-time thing that happened for like 3 minutes in the show, but these tracks. And Lemmy doesn't run around. He just stands there. So what does he care if there's some train tracks behind him? He doesn't care, right? But for us, it meant we couldn't set our drum kit up, like sort of, equal on the stage. So we had to set it up to the side. It was a fucking pain in the ass.
That's a drag.
So it caused a huge thing. Managers are fighting. Tour managers are fighting. So basically, after I think only 2 or 3 of the 5 shows, we ended up pulling off the dates. And and the next show that was going to happen was that flyer you had with the orange. We never played that. So there you have it.
It's amazing how those things kind of shake out. Let's talk real quick about a couple of other musical endeavors. We talked about Altitudes and Attitude. Right. I mean, F5 was kind of the first thing you did after the first split there. And any vibrant memories of F5?
No, it was great. So Megadeth ended in 2002. It was officially disbanded. I spent, by 2003, the F5 guys, they all lived here in Phoenix, and they had asked me to kind of jam with them on something. The guitar player was actually auditioning for Rob Halford's band at the time, and so I played bass on a track to help him with his audition. And we had such a great vibe with it that we ended up writing an album's worth of material. The singer moved down from Minneapolis. I had just produced a record for him up in Minneapolis. He was in a band called Numb. And so he moved down here to join F5. We cut the record, A Drug for All Seasons. Right as that was happening, Dave decided to resurrect Megadeth. All the business deals were changed. I said, fuck that. I'm not doing that. It's bullshit. So we end up getting into a fucking lawsuit, and our stuff finally settles and we all move on. But so at that time, F5 was what was fun about it was these guys were a few years younger than me, and it put me in touch with a new generation of how guys were, different tunings, using Mesa and Paul Reed Smith rather than, Jacksons and Marshalls and stuff like I had done in my generation. So again, kind of a new generation that I joined them. And it kind of got me real hip to what was happening at that time. And of course, now this is the era of, and Megadeth had already ushered in Stone Temple Pilots and Pantera and Korn, a lot of these bands. But, Godsmack, Disturbed, this kind of stuff was pretty popular on the airways.
That wave of
yes,
bands.
F5 kind of fit. It fit in really well with this kind of modern sound. And of course, that kind of music requires a major label, a ton of money, and all that stuff. And we just didn't get that. It was kind of more of an independent thing. But we had fun. We did 2 records. In fact, I just listened to the other one, The Reckoning, the other day. And what was interesting about The Reckoning is that the guitar players, John and Steve, they were really into the 7-string guitar thing, right? So 7-string, the low string, they have like a low B, like the 5-string bass does, right? So all of a sudden, this became the new E, right? Instead of that, which is the E, here. Right, this real kind of guttural low thing, right? So The Reckoning is a record largely of that tuning. And I tell you what, I just listened to it this last month. I found a copy of it and I pulled it out, and I really like it. It was a great record. I went back to Megadeth a couple years later in 2010, so kind of life moved on from that. But that was kind of my 2000s band. The records that came out.
I remember that. Yeah, and I guess in a certain regard, that tuning has life has moved on past that tuning as well. For the most part,
Well, and then it was fun to be back in Megadeth, and then we did the 20th anniversary of Rust in Peace. So now everything's back up in E and A. You know what I mean? Like everything's back.
All the shit you wrote when you were a teenager, right?
Yeah. Now we're back in standard tuning for a decade. But I think even Megadeth, we started tuning down a step. In fact, it's so weird. I remember we played one show, it was in Biloxi, I think, at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. And it was so funny because during sound check, everything was in E, right? Standard E tuning. And I think I'm actually tuned down a little bit here. And then all of a sudden we had the bright idea for the show to tune down a half step, which was kind of our euthanasia tuning, right? So right, so just a half step. And we went on stage, and I remember we had the hardest time singing that night because we couldn't hear the pitch. The pitch, your head was so tuned to like, here's the pitch. Then all of a sudden, here's the pitch. And a half step is really weird, which is why when you tune down a whole step, your ear can gravitate toward it because it's like moving, it's like going from that E down to a D. A whole step is your ear can adjust to that. The half step is really weird.
And also, I got to say that back then, the monitor system, it's a little bit easier now when you have in-ear monitors.
Yeah.
But back then, and of course, you guys are playing at such a volume too. It's hard vocally when you're doing vocals and you're playing at a high volume. I get lost as a vocalist because we play really loud, and I get lost in it sometimes. It's hard.
The loudest band, there's 2 of the loudest bands I ever played with. One of them was a church band, if you can believe it. There's a church in town. I was sitting and playing like kind of, I don't know, around like the late 2000s. The guitar player was so loud, and the horns, they had a horn. I was like, Jesus, this is like, I probably didn't use the word Jesus, but I was like, gee, in church, right? You got to kind of alter your language a bit. I was like, you guys are so loud. And the other one was a couple years ago, I was in Denmark, and there's a band called Artillery. They're like kind of the premier.
They
like,
sound loud, bro. I don't know. I don't know who they are, but dude, Artillery.
They were so loud on stage. I just couldn't even believe it. Because we were in a small little club. It was a solo bass story thing I was doing, and they were essentially kind of my house band to back me, as well as they played their own show, and they were so fucking loud. I couldn't. Again, it was just an assault. It's like it makes your body hurt, because there's so much. Because volume is, the speakers move air. There's literally sound pressure that will come at you.
Hey, let's take, as we go here on our journey here, let's take a question or two. Here's one from Chris. Was Dave in Soulfly for a minute?
So I was. So here's what I did with Soulfly. So on the Prophecy record, they had kind of revamped the whole band. Bobby Burns, who was previously in a band called Primer 55, was touring with them. And so he played on half of Prophecy. I played on the other half. I did the video for Prophecy. I then ended up doing a couple of shows with them on that tour. They're kind of one-offs in California and Phoenix. So I did those. I played on the Dark Ages album. I think the song Dark Ages, actually. And then I ended up doing a couple of weeks of touring with them. Bobby Burns had a sudden health issue that just temporarily sidelined him. So they called me like on a Thursday and said, "Hey, can you be in San Diego on Monday and all 25 of these songs?" So I did that. And then it's funny because I did 2 weeks, and then they had Dan Loker come out and finish the tour after that. He did a couple of weeks, so it was kind of.
Dan Loker played in Soulfly.
He did. He was just kind of the fill-in guy.
Yeah.
So I did 2 weeks.
But let me just interject that I would assume you're an Arizona guy, and that whole tribe is down there in Arizona. These are friends of yours. This is sort of like part of that community, correct?
Yeah, very much so. And it's funny because, Alice Cooper lives 20 minutes from me, and we never see each other in town. We'll see each other at a festival in Belgium or Tokyo or something, and same with Max. Max and Gloria, they live, half hour from me. And
Roger from Agnostic Front lives in Scottsdale.
Oh, really? See, again, I never see him.
My mom lives in Scottsdale.
I never see your mom.
That's when we saw you. We saw you when me and Alago, we were visiting my mom, and we went and had dinner with you that time.
Up at the Scottsdale Quarter. Yeah, exactly. I know. Yep. No, it's so everybody lives in Scottsdale. We just don't see each other all the time.
So another, and this is more current. Tell us about you in ministry playing on.
Oh yeah, I'd say so. I co-wrote the track "Believe Me," and then also I played bass on it as well. Then I played bass on the song "Search and Destroy," which is an Iggy Pop cover, and. Billy Morrison, who also plays guitar in Billy Idol, is good friends with Ozzy. He's on Sirius Radio on Boneyard a lot with Ozzy, and so I met Billy. We did a Black Sabbath Megadeth tour of South America in 2014, and that's where I got to know Billy. And I just kind of knew him as a buddy. And so here, fast forward, till it was 2020, it was last year. So here we are sitting at Al's house, is over in the Valley in LA, and we're cutting a couple of tracks, and we're writing stuff together. And Billy's a fantastic writer. I mean, great guitar player, really, really great writer, very creative guy. And just prior to that, I'd asked Al if he would join me. I have an Ellefson solo record called No Cover that I did last year. And it's a double album set of all cover songs, basically just my record collection as a kid. And so Al was kind enough to sing on the Cheap Trick song Auf Wiedersehen. And it's cool because he knows the Cheap Trick guys, of course, because they all are from the Illinois area, Chicago.
That's right.
So, it's kind of one of those, I'll do one for you if you do one for me. So Al, was on my record, and then I was on his record. So, Al is wonderful, man. I almost toured with him back in the late 2000s. I had a consulting job I was doing for PD Electronics, which prevented me from really being able to go out and kind of commit to a world tour with him. But, went over to El Paso where he was living at the time, and we hung out. And, I love Al. He's a wonderful guy. He's become a good friend to me. And so I'm super proud to be on a ministry record. I've been a big fan ever since The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste and The Land of Rape and Honey and stuff. And so I'm super proud to be able to bro down.
This record was, what's his name produced this? How do you pronounce that? Rosen? Michael Rosen, I think, produced this.
I don't know.
Yeah.
How
did you do your parts?
So we just recorded everything in the studio. It was an interesting way to do it. The bass for Search and Destroy, I actually cut that out here in Arizona.
Right. I see.
I cut that here because because there's kind of a synth bass on it. Billy Morrison had kind of laid the whole track out. We talked about it outside at Al's house at his pool. Billy brought it up, and then he sort of sketched it out, sent me the track. I cut it here. But for Believe Me, we sat in Al's studio there at his house there in LA and wrote all the parts, came up with a ton of parts. I mean, there's one part where I'm like literally full on shredding a bass solo. we're joking, like, how rad would it be to
you're doing a Billy Sheenan, right?
Yeah. So we're, and I think that some of the parts are actually in there. I think they kind they tucked them back, and you can kind of hear them in the background, which is pretty clever. So we basically just recorded. I mean, Al has his Pro Tools guy there. He just hits record. He captures everything. He puts some quick loops together. And it was really fun to do because I was always wondering how Al made these records, because he'll even have these great riffs, like New World Order and these things that he's done over the years. And they're just these great riffs, and they just loop them and they cut them. And
he's a workhorse.
Oh, he's great. And so now I kind of know how they do it is, we'd write a riff, we'd kind of loop it around, and then we'd move on, write another part. And, his Pro Tool guy just captures everything, and he kind of put a loop together. I mean, quick. I mean, this guy's freaking quick, man. He would put it together, and he'd just say, keep looping, keep playing. And we would just kind of keep riffing, and then we'd land and go, yeah, there it is right there. Let's loop that. And so then that way they just sort of captured. And, the way the Ministry records, you can tell that, they're a lot of like sort of these industrial loops, including the human riffs. They just kind of cut them and loop them. And it's such a clever way to make a record.
Yeah. Our friend Roy Moyerga is playing drums with him now.
Yeah. I just saw the video. Actually, Al just sent me a video. I don't know if it's out yet or not, but yeah, Roy's a New York guy. Hey, let's take a break. Let me shout out my sponsors and do a little hustling, and then let's come back and talk about the Lucid. And I'm excited to talk about the film you're involved in, Dwellers. Okay, sounds good, man.
We'll see you in a couple minutes.
Cool.
What's happening? Come on now, we're getting it on today, right? Seriously, we jump right into it. Bam. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. We are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chacho's Tacos, Generation Records, and the Texas Silver Rush. It's a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in working with musicians in all music genres to design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as to style them for stage, album covers, promo photos, and social media exposure. Their client list includes Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rowley, Ringo Starr, and of course, come on now, Agnostic Front. During this current, never-ending pandemic, all information and online sales are being taken at their Facebook and Instagram page, and of course, www.thetexassilverrush.com. DTFM Vinyl Distro is a record store that specializes in underground music, not above ground music, my friend, punk, ska, hardcore metal, and more. Located in the heart of Fargo, North Dakota's industrial district. Shop in person or online at www.dtfmvinyldistro.com, where the motto is artillery, death to false metal. Yo, come on now, the Organic Grill. What's up, Vlad? I saw Vlad on Channel 2 News this morning. They did a spot, a segment on Channel 2 News. I get up very early, by the way. I'm an early riser. I'm up at 5 in the morning. So I'm watching the news at 6 in the morning. Here comes Vlad from Organic Grill talking about the holidays and food. Organic Grill is a vegan restaurant located at the East Village of New York City at 123 First Avenue, featured in New York Magazine, New York Times, and the infamous, much-loved, well-regarded Veg News. Their dishes have won numerous awards, including Best Goddamn Veggie Burger. They make their own cheeses, sausages, and burger patties. And every dish on the menu could be made gluten-free. This year, they are celebrating their 21st anniversary, and they're all about having great time while enjoying amazing clean food. They've now fully reopened for business and look forward to seeing you. Get in touch with them. Order some great food at www.theorganicgrill.com. Want to mention another upcoming show, the Holiday Show. Come on now. The Holiday Show has been announced. It is going to be a mashup show. We are bringing Hoya. It is the Spoken Word Podcast, New York Hardcore Chronicles Live mashup show. We're going to be co-hosting it, him and me. We're going to bring on all kinds of guests. This is Sunday, December 26th, the day after Christmas. So we're going to bring on a whole parade of people, a lot of characters. So get ready. That's going to be pretty damn awesome. Also, I want to mention that, where is my book? The book, The New York Hardcore Chronicles, Volume 1, 1980 to 1989, is back up for pre-sale. Where is that book? Hold on a second. Let me show you what it looks like. Where is that book at? Here you go. All right. The second printing is on the way. High quality silk page. What do you call it? Glossy silk pages on this one. Here's the alternate cover. The first pressing sold out in 3 days. I did order a whole bunch more in the beginning, but because of this COVID thing, they only could send me 500. There's another 500 on the way. It has an alternate cover, as you can see here, and it has glossy silk pages. If you don't know what the book looks like, here is a page from the book. Here's a cool one. This is Siv from Gorilla Biscuits talking about this particular flyer. It is the history of New York hardcore in those years through flyers. So there you go. Buy the book, www.stonefilmsnyc.com. Here's another page from the book. This is cool. This has a couple of cool pictures on it, as you can see. Other cool pictures. So yeah, the book is being shipped. Buy the book. Support the show. I know you're thinking, how can I support the show? I love the book, but you know what, Drew Stone? I love the show. How can I support it? Funny you should ask. There is a Patreon page. Don't be a Hatreon, join Patreon. There you go. All kinds of original programming, and it's our community within a community. So, yes, I love the book too. Support, I want to shout out a couple of my new patrons. Terrence Cullinade, Brenda Cato, Chris Goldbach, Michael Duff, Andrew Bender, Sebastian Gorgone out in Long Island. Thank you all for supporting me and supporting the show via Patreon. Absolutely. If you're watching the show in rerun, there is a subscribe button. Please subscribe to the show on YouTube so you get alerts. And follow me on Instagram at StoneFilmsNYC. Come on now. Pick up the phone right now, you friggin' bum, and follow me on Instagram. Don't be a ham. Follow me on Instagram. Yes, all the cool kids are on Patreon. Is everybody else okay? This show is always so dope. Thanks, Drew. All right. Darren, Drew, some great. Hey, we're doing it today. It's Sunday. Joe Ramini. Hey, Joe, listen, man, I'm trying to get your address to send you a book. Why don't you respond to one of my messages? Meanwhile, I appreciate you being a sponsor of the show, but help me help you. I want to send you a book, bro. What do I got to do here? Happy Thanksgiving weekend to you too. What else? I think we covered kind of everything else. We'll do some more in a bit. All right, that's good. You don't got to call me, bro. Just text me your address and I'll put a book in the mail. Yeah, your Instagram's gone because you're on Instagram talking out the side of your neck and nobody wants to hear it, especially what's his name, who owns Instagram. What's his name? Mark, whatever his face is. So, All right, you just started following me on Instagram. Is that right? Good. Get with the program. Hey, I want to say that there is a super chat. If you have a question for our guest today, feel free to do it on super chat. It's a couple bucks. It comes in color, and you'll go right to the front of the line. That said, I think we're good. Let me Mark, what's his name? Ruckersberg. Yeah, there you go. Yep. Yeah, that was a great show we played at Crash Fest, Chris. We got to get back out there. And as if you didn't already know, let me just mention again, speaking of Antidote NYHC, a week from today, there will not be a show because we're doing our record release show along with The Take and Enziguri and non-residents down at the Bowery Electric. It's free. If it's free, it's for me. So, come on, come through. That said, let me get rid of this stuff. Why can't I find? There it is. That is a week from today. Come down. It's free. It's all ages. So, yeah. People hate the truth. Yeah, and it's just guys like you that are you're just apostles of the truth, right? Everybody, what is the truth? Everyone has their own truth, don't they? So there you go. That said, let's bring our guests back on. Hey, listen, it's, we're going to do a little bit and then we're open for some questions. So I know people have been asking questions through the show. Don't get in front of you. Don't get too ahead of yourselves here, right? We got some other stuff we want to talk about. Question for later. No questions for later, Chris. When it's question time, post a question. Let's bring Dave back on. Hey, Dave.
Hey, man. What's going on?
Everybody's getting a little busy with themselves on this Sunday with the questions,
Yeah, it's a good way to spend a Sunday, man. It's like hanging out, just talking about movies, rock and roll, whatever, So I like it.
Speaking of which, I want to talk to you about the Lucid. And I really enjoy doing my homework and listening to the music on I listen on Spotify, and I all leading up to the show, and I really enjoyed this. How did this come together, the Lucid? Give us a little background.
Sure. Okay, so the guy in the front there with the cross around his neck, that's Vin Dombrowski. He is the singer in a band called Sponge. Right. Next to him, Mike Heller plays drums in Fear Factory and Raven.
Yep.
And the gentleman behind me, Drew Fortier, is the guitar player who was in Bang Tango for a couple minutes. And funny enough, he actually did a documentary film about Bang Tango.
Right.
And all their dysfunction. Then he joins the band. So I don't know. That's how lunatic he is, right? So, every great band has some freaking drama in it. Otherwise, they're not a real rock and roll band. So God bless them. So Drew and Mike had been working on some material and just sent something over to me last year in 2020 and just said, hey, do you want to play bass on something? So it's funny, I actually used this bass, the silver one. I just picked it up, plugged in.
Right.
And it was the song Hair, which is one of the tracks on the Lucid record. Mm-hmm. And it was fun. It was just kind of simple, 3 chords. And I was like, you know what, that was really cool. And so we just started vibing. I went over to LA a couple months later to Mike's, got a great studio there. He plays on a lot of death metal records and a lot of this kind of stuff. And
let me just interject. Mike's got great feet, man.
Oh, dude, he's got an incredible drummer, man. I mean, great drummer, great producer.
Yeah.
As we were talking earlier in the bass lesson portion of the podcast here, I've learned more about music, about becoming a better bass player by just being in the studio making records with guys, and even Mike producing me. Just sitting there going, okay, I've come up with my parts and to play to the record. And then Mike saying, how about maybe in that part right there where I'm doing that fill, maybe you can pick up a thing. Hey, where there's this guitar part's kind of hanging here. It might be kind of cool if you move some notes around to create some ideas, so again, someone else, collaborating on ideas. And I obviously I'm pretty good at what I do, bringing my own ideas in, but it's nice when you have a producer who's hearing kind of a bigger picture of things, because they're not right there in their own conversation with the instrument. They're kind of thinking about the whole narrative, So I love that. Mike, great producer. Drew, fantastic guitar player, and a really original guitar player. He really comes up with these, kind of jangly chords and different things. He's a musician in a style that I've never played with before, to be honest with you. So was really cool for all of us.
I thought that, I felt a little Alice in Chains influence.
A little
bit. And enjoyed that.
Drew's in his mid-30s, so he's got, again, he's 20 years younger than me. So, he's definitely got a whole different style. And I noticed a question, what studio or what area is the studio in? That, that graffiti is literally just a few addresses down from Mike's house and studio in LA, across the I-10. I don't want to give Mike's address away, but so the 110 freeway, which goes through downtown. On the east side is the Staples Center and Microsoft Theater, all that. So Mike's literally on the west side of the freeway right there. That's that neighborhood. Very colorful, super cool.
Yeah, sure.
I know. I like the wall. I said, man, let's take a picture here because it kind of has this like suicidal tendency kind of look about it. You know?
It's a well composed photo, and that's, by the way, RS70 UGHC is our resident graffiti historian and big graffiti lover. You know,
so, tons of graffiti just like that all around that part of town. And I don't think it's Koreatown, is it? Is that what that is? I'm not sure what that is over there, but very ethnic area, kind of an Asian ethnicity in that area, and a lot of great graffiti on the walls, man. It was super cool. So yeah, there's the album cover.
Yeah. And this is the album. What happens with the Lucid moving forward? Like, what's the plan? Live shows, perhaps?
Yep. So we're getting together in a couple weeks in LA to shoot some videos. And the artwork, I saw the guy Darren there has a question. So the artwork is Alex out of Mexico, Mexico City, I believe. He's the one who did the artwork for it. And
really good.
Yeah, isn't it cool? It's I like
it a lot.
Yeah. Again, the whole thing of like hitting the bomb, so
yeah, right.
Shooting some videos, and then we've got the month of May we've dedicated for dates for live shows for the band, and we're looking at probably later in 2022 a trip over to Europe as well. And it's funny, we probably have, to get the 9 songs for the record, there was probably about 30 songs on deck.
Wow.
Right now we've got probably 20 for the next record. So we're well on our way to the next record. In fact, we're going to start spending some time now, working on what could become.
Have you played live yet?
We have not. Not.
Yeah. I didn't think so.
Yeah. Hopefully it works. I mean, hopefully we actually sound like a real band. It's the fun in doing these things, because we've all hung out. We were in the studio together, hanging out and working on the record. And because of the nature of COVID, of course, the pandemic, a lot of records, I made three or four records, man, at least 3 records I can think of off the top of my head. They also No Cover, this. And there's another one that'll come out next year as well, that I've done kind of pandemic quarantine style, where we work on in our home studios, or kind of work locally, just because we weren't able to travel. I've had 2 trips to Europe booked to go work with the guitar player of my solo band, Andy Martingelli, over in Verona, Italy. I had 2 trips scheduled, and they've both been canceled because he can't get there during pandemic. So fortunately with the Lucid, I was able to, just drive over to LA and sit with Mike in his studio. So the Lucid was one where we were actually able to be in the room together working on it, which I like. I always prefer to be in the room with guys when we're making.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The other thing, hold on, let me just get rid of this. Sorry. Yeah. So Darren says Megawind should be a video from the album. Yeah, that's a great song. Yeah.
Fair enough. We'll do it.
Yeah.
I know. Yes, I love it. I think that was the first song. Hair was the first song I think we worked on together, but I think Megawind was the first track that it's funny, me and Mike and Drew were together for a day and a half or so, and then Vinny flew in from Detroit to come and hang with us and just kind of get the vibe, which I thought was great, that he made the effort to fly out during the pandemic and be there and be in the room and be part of it all. And from that, he went home and then, finished writing lyrics and sang his parts on the record.
I must say that the record's very well produced.
Yeah.
It really is. I listened to it today, and it's just and the vocals are very well produced. Very, very, very well done.
I would agree. And Lassie, who is a German engineer who mixed it, fantastic. I mean, that's the thing is, mixing is such a critical part of this, because we can put it together. But then when you hand it over to someone to mix it, it's sort of like taking your vision of something and giving it to them, and hopefully they bring it all together and make it even better, so which you did.
Okay. Hey, I want to talk about, I want to play a clip, and I want to talk about the film that you're involved in, Dwellers. I guess Drew can't make it, right? So
I don't think so. I mean, I hit him to see if he could show up. He was driving. He was actually overdoing something in East Tennessee. So he was, like we talked, we invited him to be here, but he was driving and he didn't want to jump in and have it be dodgy reception.
Yeah.
So
let's look at this clip. Let's take a look at this clip, and then let's talk about it.
Okay, so for the past few months, there's been this huge surge of missing persons reports, and it's all homeless people.
I mean, the whole thing's been blown way out of proportion.
But the hook is nobody gives a shit. What we're doing is building awareness to see if we can find out what the fuck happened to these people.
Some people moved underground. It didn't work out.
Yeah, I remember hearing about them. The stories that circulate in the undergrounders.
There were a ton of us. A whole community scattered all over the sewer system. Then us missing homeless started going missing. The sightings started happening, and I got the fuck back up here and lived every day trying to forget what I heard and saw.
Which was?
The manifestation of everything you never want to see in a near pitch black tunnel.
Turn the fucking camera on now, James. When I say capture everything, you capture fucking everything, okay? Everything!
I watched the film. It was on Amazon Prime, and I really enjoyed it. And as a independent filmmaker, a guy who knows what goes into these things, I must say it was unique. It was unique, and I did really enjoy it. And so it was well done for a film that from what I understand really didn't cost much, right?
No. So it's a found footage film, which means just that, truly like found footage. It's Drew's brainchild. He wrote, directed it. It's basically kind of a 3-act film.
Yep.
And as you probably could surmise, so there's homeless people in the city. They've moved underground and they started going missing. So Drew's character in the film, they put together a documentary film crew to go document these homeless people going missing, and while they're making the film, they themselves go missing. So it's that's why at the end when he says film everything, and I mean everything, that's the whole point of it, is to keep the camera rolling for the documentary. So it's a documentary about missing people who they themselves go missing. That's it.
And how did you get involved in this? I mean, it's Ellefson Films.
Right.
You're the producer. Like, how did you get involved? And at what point did you say, "Hey, I'm in. Let's do it through my film production company. I want to be on as a producer." Like, what's the tipping point for something like that?
Yeah, well, it is just that, So it's kind of like, for me, because I have the record label, EMP Label Group, and Combat Records. Was really about me jumping in to help get the distribution and putting that part of it together. Fortunately, because it's found footage, there's no catering. There's no, it's not a union film. We didn't have to have.
Well, I'm not familiar with that term, found footage.
So found footage. So probably the most famous found footage is Blair Witch, the Blair Witch.
Yeah. I see.
Right. So it's this concept.
If I could put in Cloverfield, that would be found footage.
Okay, right? Sure. There's a bunch of them. It's a whole genre, and as Drew got me hip to it, it's a pretty big genre now. And part of it is because it's kind of like making songs or records for the internet, right? It's like anybody can sit in their home studio and make a record and put it up on the internet. And hey, guess what? You're now in the record business, right?
Everybody's a director.
Yeah, everybody's a director, everybody's a musician, everybody's a rock star. So, found footage has kind of been that same thing. Now, of course, there's professional polish to it here, as far as the ad mats and all the other things, and some of the, because we produced DVDs as well as Blu-ray of it, and like you said, it's on Amazon Prime. So we pushed it out there like that. We did not do it as a box office feature, and because of course that's a whole other level and expense.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, that's a whole lot. Yeah, I'm preaching.
But you went the right way, from what I perceive. It did really well in a lot of horror festivals, and it won best horror film at the Mad Monster Film Fest, at Bridge Fest, at the Screenwriting Festival.
Look, man, I've got these. Oh
yeah, buddy, come on now.
I've got a Grammy over there, and obviously a bunch of gold records behind me, platinum records. So now I have my first,
cool is that?
This one from the Las Vegas Film Awards. So I won Best Producer from this, which is nice.
That is awesome.
I owe them a photo. They asked me to take a photo of that, so I owe them that. And then here's from the Screenwriter Fest. We were second place for a feature film, but we won a ton of awards.
I saw the list, man. It was like that. People love that film, and
it's super cool. And Darren's asking, hope it comes out on DVD. It is out on DVD and Blu-ray, and I think it's dwellersfilm.com, I believe, is where you can go and order it. From there, I believe we have copies there, and we've got a merch fulfillment store and everything there, so you can buy it there. So.
It reminded me, I'm a big fan of the Blair Witch Project film, because as a filmmaker, I just thought it was so incredibly smart and unique and frugal. And like it's whenever I see a film and I go, how could I not have thought of that?
Right.
It's like, because I'm constantly trying to think,
I was asking Drew that too. I said, well, dude, shouldn't we have like the Lucid be the soundtrack? And he goes, just FYI, in a found footage film, there is no soundtrack because it's found footage. And I said, okay, touche. So
right.
Because we pushed out Dwellers came out on Tuesday, October 12th, and we put out the Lucid record on Friday, October 15th. So kind of the same week. It was a pretty big week for me and Drew for two different ventures that we were involved in, both the film, and then of course we were both in the Lucid together. So it was, I learned a lot, like you probably did too. Every time you make a film, just like me, every time I make a record or now a film, you learn something. Let's face it, Drew, we learn what not to do probably as much as we learn what to do, and that's how you get the experience. What is the cliche? Experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted. So
yeah. And was that my man Jerry from Mushroomhead in the film there for a minute?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
That was interesting cameo.
Yeah. Well, because it's filmed in Ohio, so it's kind of in his back.
Yeah. And yes, Sergeant D, it's on Prime, and I watched it on Prime this morning. It was like, it's not a long film. But it's incredible when you watch it and there was no budget for this. It was a smart idea, and it was executed. It was executed very well. Walter asks, what are Dave's favorite horror movies? Are you a horror movie fan? Going into this?
It's funny. I am, and not so much recently, but when I was a young kid, man, I loved horror because, it scares the living daylights out of us, which is what we love about rock and roll and heavy metal and Kiss and everything else that I grew up with, So, probably my first earliest horror film. So I grew up on the farm, Minnesota. We had one channel, Channel 12, which was black and white CBS. And then I remember we advanced to the V8 or the UHF towers, so we could get things from out of Des Moines, Iowa, and Cedar Rapids, as well as like that.
The big city
stuff. Yeah. So then Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Invisible Man. I remember Tarantula, Night of the Lepus was a good one. And then, then as we started, probably Alien is still one of the favorite, like the original.
I love that film.
I remember going to see that with my brother and a couple of his buddies, and we went to a drive-in down just over the border in Iowa. Scared the freaking pants off me, man. That thing was so freaky.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because I realize a lot of young people love horror. I mean, they just love it. And it plays so well, obviously, into the heavy metal culture. And that's why I appear at a lot of horror conventions, is because our fan base is there. Guys our age, guys and women our age, as well as like, young rock and roll fans. They're totally into it. So it plays well, and it's gonna kind of a nice cross platform there, Well, I lost you for some reason. I don't have audio.
My bad.
There you go.
And any future plans to be producing any other film projects?
It's funny. Yeah, for sure.
Now that you're an award-winning producer,
I'm an award-winning film producer now.
That is awesome. That's
Yeah.
like me being an award-winning, musician.
Let me get this. This is really funny. So Drew, one day we're talking, and so he said, I was talking about like castles across Europe, right? And he said, dude, you can go to Sealand, Sealand, right? So Sealand and you look it up online. You can buy a square foot of land of Sealand. So I became a lord, right? Because that's what a landowner is a lord. And then I upgraded to becoming a baron, and then I even paid another couple $100 and became a sir, right? So now I'm Sir Lord Baron David Ellefson.
Nice.
The royal and noble title of the royal family. So, for only like a few $100, I became a sir, as opposed to, Paul McCartney and Elton John. They have to pay like, I don't know, £1 million to the Queen, or something to become a sir. So now you can refer to me now as award-winning producer, Sir David Ellefson, right? So,
one question I have about, just as we move on, about where was that main tunnel? Where was that location? The main tunnel.
That was in Akron. I think it was
in Akron, Ohio. One of those old industrial sort of Yeah. And I'm just looking at my notes real quick from one film producer to another.
Yes.
I love the POV stuff, which basically, is found footage, Blair Witch chud feel to it.
Totally. 100%.
Very good edited very well.
I remember talking to Drew because, it's funny. So as I guess maybe the producer, and I guess just kind of how I roll with things is, I never like to make something and leave it open-ended. I always like kind of try to, because as I'm making it, I get excited. I go, oh my God, we should do this. We should do that. Let me call this person, do that. And I just, we get excited and all flustered and all just, get just amped up. Right. So to me, everything has a deadline. Nothing gets stuck in the basement, in the editing room, in the mix room. Like my records come out, my films come out. Everything I do is going to see the light of day, right? And so I remember Drew, we'd actually written a book together too called Rockstar Hitman, which is an idea that came to me. I was in Sao Paulo, and
oh boy,
a friend of mine called me and he said,
where Sepultura came from, Sao Paulo.
Yeah, right? I was down there. I was on a solo tour, and my friend of mine called me from Scottsdale. He goes, where in the world are you today? And I said, well, I'm down in Brazil. And he laughed. He goes, every time I call you, you're in some other country. He goes, you fooled us all to think you're a musician. You probably work for the CIA. And I go, dude, that is a great idea. So I started writing this book, Rockstar Hitman. And the idea being that by night you're a rock star, but by day you're a hitman, right? And it's funny because Motley Crue has now taken that idea into some comic book thing or something that they're doing.
Right?
But Drew and I wrote this book called Rockstar Hitman. We started it in late 2019. And Drew's got a great mind for, the darker stuff, right? So I kind of framed out the characters. I framed out the narrative of the whole thing. And then he filled in like the beheadings and shootings and stuff. And so we have a great collaboration on that. So we did the book, the film, and then the Lucid record. So we kind of had this trifecta of creativity between us. And, but back to the editing. So Drew spent I remember we wanted to premiere it in February.
Did Drew edit it?
He did the editing. Yep.
Yo, I gotta give him props, man, because
Yeah.
you know, I edit my films also for the most part. I know he did a very good job editing it. Like, I did not think that he's got some skills there. He did a very good job.
Well, you know, and I remember talking to him. So I remember it was February 20th of 2021 here, earlier this year. We were asked to appear. We got invited to appear at Mad Monster Horror Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina area. And I told him, I said, dude, this is the downbeat. We got to have it ready. We're going to premiere the film. And that's when that's where we won our first award, was there. And we had submitted the film out to I think 30 different film festivals. And many of which, like, gosh, I don't know, 18 of which we won awards for from these festivals. Right. So, I kept telling, so he was pulling his hair out. He goes, oh my God, I'm stressed. I got to get this film done. And well, as you know, and I know this from making records, and I know it from writing books, because I've written 4 books myself. And, you know, there's comes this point in every narrative, whether it's a song, a movie, a book, what is the story? Where's the heart of it? And is it going to go this way, or is it going to go that way? Because lots of times when you're editing, and you know, the editing is really where the final story comes together. It's like mixing the record, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah. You're right. It's like a mix.
Yeah, it's like it could go this way, it could go that way, or there's
its own separate art form.
Yeah. So, you know, and Drew said the same thing. He goes, man, I had to make some really tough decisions. And he goes, I'm glad I chose what I chose to go where it went. But he said, man, you know, obviously, as you know, all footage shot does not usually get used. Some lays on the cutting room floor, but you really decide where's the ending of the film? Like, where does it leave off? You know? So, I'll let him know that you said that about him, because I know he was pulling his hair out.
Well, you know, there's a big concern about, and I'm going through this now because my new film, my dad's involved, my brother's involved, and you know, directors shouldn't be editing their films. It's like musicians. I mean, there's exceptions, of course, but you know, when you get musicians in the mixing process, or you know. I don't want to lose, you know, turn me up. And I feel like I can edit my films. I edited the Ilago film. I edit all my stuff. I have the ability to be brutal. And I'm not attached to, even if I'm attached to something. Yeah, it took me 2 months to shoot this. If it's got to go, it's for the best of the project. It's got to go.
Well, there's 2 things. One, if there's no money, guess what? You're now editing. You know what I mean? There's that. But 2, and I found this making records, is, again, if there's no money, guess what? The guy who recorded it is also mixing it. But I have also found there is a and even big dollar records with the high dollar producers. You know, there's a reason why these mixer guys get the call to mix, because they offer a different perspective. They haven't recorded it. They're not so close to it.
Sure.
Certainly in the independent world, again, where budgets are a concern, and there just isn't the money to hand it off to someone to edit. But then there's also the thing about there's a precious nature of the story. And it's like, I don't want to just hand this over to somebody, because not only did I shoot it, but in my mind, I have the whole thing scoped out, you know? So, and oftentimes directors or producers can oversee it, but I get it. It's like, I know what's here. I know over here is a piece that I want to pull in, and this is, you know, tells the arc of the story. And so I get it. You know, it's editing is, like Mad Cat's saying, it's a lot of work. It's a pain in the ass. But if you can do it and you can maintain perspective of it, then hey, God bless you, man.
And that's what it is. Maintaining perspective is big. You know, just keep, you know, not losing yourself in it. You know, interestingly enough, I don't know if you heard that we were talking before, that Charlie Benante from Anthrax, who you've played with many times, is coming on the show, and we're going to do he's a big Jaws fanatic. And we're gonna do a Jaws episode of the show. Nice. He owns all this like Jaws memorabilia and stuff. Like, he's a fanatic, you know. So you know, hey, listen, you know, you know what, Charlie? I already talked to Frankie. I already talked to Scotty. you know what? Enough with the Anthrax stuff. Let's talk about Jaws.
Well, of course, and it's interesting, and you're right. Charlie's a wonderful friend, and it's funny. He appeared at. I'd been doing a lot of conventions, Comic-Con, horror conventions, otherwise, and he appeared at his first one in Chicago, the Days of the Dead. It was me, Charlie was there, and Brian from Korn, Head, was there, and.
Yeah.
Head was breaking out his third book, and that's what inspired me to write another memoir. And in fact, I've now started my next book, My Life After Death, which
apropos.
I'm about 16 chapters into it. I just sat and just barfed a bunch of stuff out. And a book is just like everything else. You write it. It's kind of like writing an album. You just start writing riffs, you just catalog, then they make songs, and then you got a bunch of songs, and then you kind of boil down, really what's the heart of the story here, So I'm doing the same thing. I figured, let me just get started on the next book. And Head was a real inspiration at that Days of the Dead show, because I was like, I had a couple books out, and I'm like, man, I got to get going here. This guy's like.
How do you write your books? Do you literally type them out, or do you use dictation software?
I've done a couple different versions. With my first memoir, My Life with Death, which again, I always said I'll do my life with death, and I did more life with death, and then one day I'll do my life after death. Right. So I've already kind of had the trilogy here.
Yeah, the Death trilogy.
Yeah, exactly. But My Life with Death, Joel MacGyver is a co-writer. He called me. We did, I think, 20 different phone calls over Skype. And he knew what he wanted to talk about, the areas of my life. So I just talked. Yeah. And then I think he just hit the dictation, translate, and it put it out.
That's a nice way to do it.
It was a nice way to do it. The problem with it was, and I've talked to him about this, is he's British. So his translation was, meanwhile, down at the pub with Anthrax, me and the lads. It made me sound like I was British, so I had to rewrite a lot of it myself to just kind of make it sound in my voice. But at least he captured the story. A lot of all the other books I have written myself on laptop, and even it's funny you'd ask this, because even this last week I'm like going, Jesus, there's got to be some way I can like talk this into the like Siri voice type, right?
There is.
I know there is, yeah. But here's the thing, and I found this when doing other writing. There's a visceral connection between you, the pen, and paper. I mean, it's a different thing, and so part of me goes, God, I really should be writing this down and then translating it on the computer back.
You're right.
There is. Yeah, because one of the things that can happen with the word processor is the tendency to edit your work right then and there, and you don't want to edit. You just want to get it out, then go back and start editing it, and then start refining the story. So I think even if I make a mistake, a typo, I try not to go back. I try to just keep moving forward, to just keep the narrative and the thoughts going. And I've written music business books. I've written, memoirs and stuff. So I think, but the main thing is just to get the idea out of your head onto the paper, so it sits somewhere outside of your mind.
That makes a lot of sense. And I find that I've been working on a book, a long-term book, and the difference between when I dictate it and when I actually type it out, a lot more. You could dictate anything, and it's just this sort of stream of consciousness. But when I really have to type it out, it comes to it makes a lot more sense. More care is put into it. I feel. Right. But anyway, let's take a couple questions. Let me just do give me a minute here. Let me just shout out the last of my sponsors, and let's take a couple of questions. What's happening? This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM, Vinyl Distro, Chachos, Tacos, and since 1992, Generation Records has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as T-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Also, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, located in Lakewood, Colorado, is the Rocky Mountain headquarters for all things punk, hardcore, and metal. Established in 2014, they have a large selection of records, CDs, shirts, stickers, patches, and accessories between Chicago and LA. From the pit to the ditch, they've got your back. Get in touch with them at www.chainreactionrecords.com. Yo, it is question time, everybody around the world. If you have an intelligent, coherent question, please type it in the chat room, and let's get on to some questions. So here we go. Let's bring Dave back, and let's see what we got. Okay. Dave, what made you want to go to a 5-string, and why a 5-string and not a 6-string?
Okay, good question. So 6-string, the reason why is because it is it's a C, which would be a fourth higher, right? And in the kind of music I play, and metal and loud rock music, like you would never hear that string because it's basically up in kind of the guitar area, right? Wonderful for soloing, and especially if you're playing kind of maybe R&B music or something like that, or jazz, where there's not a wall of guitars, you'd be able to actually hear that note. But once I even get up here, and I'm sorry this isn't plugged in, but I get up here even into these notes, that's about as high as you can go in the music I play and still actually hear the note.
That makes sense, yeah.
And so the 5th string is, again, now it's a 5th lower. It's the B string. So that has a nice place because, and it's funny, you talk about Charlie Benante. I was just hearing him do something on Sirius Radio. He was doing this drumsticks, which I guess for Thanksgiving is kind of this show that he did. And he was bringing out like some of his favorite drum tracks. And he was mentioning Clive Burr from Iron Maiden, the song Prodigal Son off the Iron Maiden Killers record. And it reminded me that the British bass players always played things up an octave higher. And Steve, of course, would play things up here. Same with Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. They always played things up in this upper octave, right? Whereas for me, I always play things in the lower octave, and maybe more so with the Megadeth stuff because I always wanted there to be weight and heaviness. To me, playing low created heavy, and that's why, probably to this question, the 5-string added those extra notes that you can play down low. Now, once you go below sort of an E string, bass amps freak out because they're not really designed. There's the bass amps today have a lot more wattage, which you need to move the speakers to push air, right? But as you start getting down lower, they're not tuned for that. Most of them are kind of tuned for the frequencies of a 4-string bass, especially like the Ampeg SVT with Leo Fender's design of a Fender precision bass. You start getting much lower than that. You need to either get into more small speakers like the 810 cabinets or 15s or 18s and things like that. And then you're kind of down in the area where PA systems reside, so that for me, it's always about being musical, yet also letting the technology be able to speak those notes you're playing. Low frequencies are, again, they require a whole different approach to how they're executed and how they're played.
And especially you guys, I just had a flash of sort of that sound of the European festival on, like that dull thudding sound. It's like how much stuff is lost in that on those big stages. Man.
Yeah. Well, and the instruments, again, the electric guitar, then Leo Fender invented the electric bass. He put it in the same scale and a size that complemented the electric guitar. He developed the amplifiers around it. And again, back to the British guys, a lot of Marshall amps and things like that. They were kind of taking guitar amps and making bass amps out of it. Here in America, of course, we had Ampeg, we had acoustic, we had these amplifier manufacturers who, I think, in my opinion, created better tonality to create real bass, real bottom end, and not just sort of playing guitar on the bass. And so I don't know, Jack Bruce, a lot of these guys, they kind of played, and who was it? Andrew, who was the guy that played in Free? Andy Fraser, he would play things in these higher octaves, and they sounded fine on the recordings. But I find live, when you're in the room, that's where you need the frequencies to be low, especially
Sure.
in rock and metal, because that's what creates the weight to it all.
Got it. Gary asks, hey, David, can you talk about the rebirth of Combat Records?
Sure. Well, a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to acquire the brand and the trademark for Combat Records and to relaunch.
Which was based initially here in Queens, New York, I believe.
It was. Jamaica, New York is where we used to go out and see Mike Schnapp, who we probably know worked
Howie
radio.
Abrams was out there.
Yes.
Mike
Yep.
Schnapp, and it was Combat in Effect and Relativity, correct?
Yep, exactly. Yep. And so then Barry Coburn, who owned the conglomerate there, he sold all that off.
I remember him. Yeah.
My Killing Is My Business royalties now come from Sony. Sony owns the catalog. So I don't own any of like the Megadeth Nuclear Assaults. I don't own those records. Those are all now under Sony. But so basically I own like the logo so I can make a t-shirt and I can, rebrand and relaunch that. And so we did with Hellstar and Raven and a few artists, Sword, some artists that were originally on the record label back in the day, and signed a few new things as well. And so, but I'm being very selective with it because it's really a thrash punk,
Always has been, yeah.
label. Yeah. So it requires, in my opinion, that same kind of sound and look to it.
Fair enough. Gotta ask this one. Dominic asks, who is your favorite drummer you work with in Megadeth? I like you and Menza, one of my favorite rhythm sessions. I know it's not a fair question, who's your favorite, but you worked with a couple of really talented guys, man.
Good question, Dominic. So, it's interesting. So I'm actually helping produce, I guess, technically this is the next film production that I'm working on, is the documentary film for Nick Menza. It's called This Was My Life, the story of Nick Menza. Right. So I'm narrating the film and I'm also helping produce it. In fact, I was just in the studio this last week. We have a bunch of drum tracks of his, just raw tracks. And I thought, let me call up some of my buddies, like guys like even Stu Ham, who are jazz musicians. I've got a whole bunch of different people, even some people at Berklee College of Music. We're working on writing new songs to Nick's tracks. So it's kind of like posthumously we're creating new music with our beloved Nick Menza. Right. So I thought that was kind of a
now didn't something just surface some drum tracks of his? Didn't you just
That's what they are.
I just saw that, right? Yeah.
And I was just in the studio this last week writing some. I wrote these kind of like Judas Priest, Queen, Tie Your Mother Down kind of riffs, these tracks. And so it's kind of a way to collaborate with my dear friend Nick Menza. Because again, the music, when we leave the planet, we leave our music behind. And so it's kind of nice that Nick has these tracks. So, Nick is great to record with. Nick live always pushed things. He was a very, rock star.
Aggressive.
Yeah. Playing live, Chuck Beeler was a great drummer because he kept things very much in the pocket. He pulled things back. He made things very easy to play to. Same with Jimmy DeGrasso and even Sean Drover. These guys are very consistent pocket drummers.
Yeah.
I think the tendency in rock and especially metal is to kind of push because, there's this urgency, and especially playing fast and playing speed metal and stuff, it's easy to push stuff. So they all had their place. Gar Samuelson was Gar was interesting to play to because he never played the same thing twice. He would play generally what he recorded, but never precisely what he recorded. And that was just in his jazz nature.
I was going to say, if I remember correctly, he comes from a jazz background, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they all had their place, and they all had different, different nuances.
I know you're not a New York East Coast guy, but was it special playing with the Big Fort Yankee Stadium?
So, it was. And I got to be honest with you, one of my favorite parts of that day was the hometown gig for Anthrax. And to see them, this is a childhood dream of theirs. And I'm not a Yankees fan. I'm a Diamondbacks and a Minnesota Twins fan. So sorry to get the feathers ruffled, but
it's okay.
Those are my teams, right? So within my house, believe me, big time Yankee fans around here, So we're a house divided on that part. But to see them there, and Randy Johnson was there, and he was a Yankee. He also won the World Series for us against the Yankees, ironically, as a Diamondback.
You guys killed us that year. That was heartbreaking.
He was a friend of Lars's. He's a friend of Randy's a fantastic photographer, you know.
That's his thing now.
Yeah. In fact, I've actually used one of his ads for a Jackson Guitars ad. I had Jackson buy the photo from him, which was very cool. I thought was, you know, to kind of use his photo in Bass Player Magazine for an ad that we did. So no, it was super cool. It was really great to again, that's
I think a lot of people like our pal Freeman says, I felt great for Anthrax. Like it was like home cooking, man. You know, it meant we knew how much it meant to them.
100%.
You know, people have been asking about Marty Friedman. Thomas says Marty Friedman used all kinds of exotic scales on guitar. What was it like playing with him?
So Marty was great. In fact, me and Marty got along very well because we were both small town kids. We both liked Kiss and Black Sabbath and Pat Travers and Angel. And we were kind of, you know, in fact, Marty came up with the concept that
Pat Travers, come on now.
You and I were the Kiss Sabbath guys. Dave and Nick Menza were the Led Zeppelin Aerosmith guys. So we had this theory that there's two. You're either Kiss Sabbath or you're Led Zeppelin Aerosmith, right? And of course, we all love Zeppelin and Aerosmith. We all love all these bands. But it's funny how, you know, that was kind of the division of kind of what you grew up on. And Marty, so here's the thing about Marty's playing, you know, so Marty, you're right. He had this ear for Eastern music, and Eastern music, you know, and especially like Middle Eastern music. Okay, so we've got the frets, right? And there's, you know, in a normal, you know, Western music scale, there's the sort of 7-note scale, right? And there's 12 notes within the chromatic scale. And in the music that Marty would listen to, there was either things like the sitar or no frets at all, so you could sort of bend notes and play the notes in between the notes. And a lot of times on certain instruments, there's what's called a half fret. So in between the fret, there would be another fret. So now there's many notes between here, especially if you're fretless, you would play, you could hear them. But, you know, the frets define like that's a note, that's a note, that's a note, right? So in our Western mindset, there's a limited number of notes. Marty, you know, he could play any fill or lick. And even if he landed on what we would consider a wrong note, he would bend it up into a note that would be sort of, let's call it legal, as Max Norman used to say. That note is legal, mate, you know, or illegal, right? So Marty had this really good ear that he didn't think of things so sort of linear. He was much more abstract. So
That's interesting.
Play anything and because of those bends, you know, it's a very Japanese sounding, you know, so it's interesting to, you know, to kind of, you know, I kind of understood that years later. I didn't really understand it because when you're sitting with Marty, he could play things and not so much understand it from a sort of music theory point of view, but just fundamentally could hear it and understood it, you know, and that's a whole other skill.
That's awesome. How he sort of he works his way to the note, you know.
Totally.
Yeah, that's
any note is legal in Marty Friedman's landscape because he can
awesome.
bend it into something that would harmonically resonate and make sense.
Amazing how many people are responding to Marty here in the chat room. People, I guess he's a really beloved player, man.
He is, and he's a wonderful human being. He's a super sweet.
Well, that helps too.
You know, it's so he's not a guy who's just a gunslinger, you know, like a-hole guy. He's a wonderful human being, and he's, you know, he's and you can hear it in his music. You know, he can step it up and melt your face, or he can pull it back. I mean, that record that he did. When we were doing Countdown to Extinction, he did a record called Scenes that he had Kataro produce with him.
Wow.
That to me is, I think, kind of a sweet spot of, if you want to hear Marty not being a rocker, go buy that Scenes record. I think that's the one that, in my opinion, is just, it's almost like smooth. It's not even smooth jazz. It's like this ethereal landscape, or, you know, soundscape. kind of music. It's really cool.
You know, I love how you pulled the Max Norman card before.
Mhm.
I forgot what year it was. I was a stage manager on a film stage in Astoria, Queens, and Fate's Warning came in to do a video. And
Right.
I guess he produced the Fate's Warning record. I think it was No Exit, it might have been called. And I think his wife at the time was directing the music video. But I got to chat with him a little bit, and you know, wow, Max Norman's in our little film stage in Astoria, Queens.
Dude, Max lives in New York. You should get him on your show, man. Dude,
yeah,
Max,
I'd love to talk to
Max. Has some stories. I'll try to help you hook that up if I can, because I tell you, man, Max has some stories. He's funny as shit in his sort of Midlands British accent. Man, he's got some stories because, you know, he engineered the first 2 Ozzy records.
Yes, of course.
Originally, he was engineering under Chris Sangarides, who was producing, and I think Chris got fired or something, or was let go somehow. And then Max ended up, I don't think he got the producer credit for it, but engineering credit. But essentially, he produced, as I understand, kind of produced and
I always associated him with those records.
Yeah, no, totally, 100%. That basically Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman.
Yeah.
Then of course he worked with Megadeth. He mixed Rust.
You worked with him a bunch of times, right?
Yeah, he mixed Rust in Peace. He co-produced Countdown, Euthanasia, and then he did all the stuff in between, like Go to Hell, Paranoid, 99 Ways to Die.
Right.
He's got ears, man. I mean, he made me an incredibly much better bass player, you know, because just making records with the guy, you know, and he's funny. Yeah, you should get him on the show, man.
Well, I'll reach out to you after, and maybe you know, you because we're going in all kinds of directions here.
You'd love talking.
We're
to
not
him.
we're not scared.
Fans would love him. Yeah.
Cool. You know what? We're heading down the home stretch. See, I told you, time flies, bro.
It does. Does fly when you're having fun.
And we had fun, man. Let me bring Steven Messina on. He has a question. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Dave. How are you?
Good, buddy. How are you?
This has been terrific. I've really been enjoying this. I want to ask, speaking of guitar players you worked with, one of our Long Islanders a while back, you did an album with Al Petrelli.
Yes.
And I got to see you guys at that point at Irving Plaza. I think it was right after 9/11, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And if you had any memories or stories from working with him.
Sure. In fact, I'm going to go see him next week. His West Coast TSO comes through town. I go see Al every year on TSO because I just love the guy as a friend. I love watching him play. He is such a rock star, and his heart center. You know, he's part of the kind of the quadrant of TSO between, you know, Paul O'Neill and John Oliva. And so I just love watching him play. But, you know, it's interesting you bring up that show. I remember it well. 9/11 did just happen. Al, being a New Yorker, really rattled him. You know, he was, I think at the time, dating or was married to a jingle writer. Well, Jane Mangini, and they were married for a period, and she was a jingle writer in New York City. In fact, that was one of the first jingles I played on. They called me in to play in a Heineken commercial.
Oh, that's great.
I played. It was the one where the little cans were dancing, and that was Jane's thing. It was just come in and, like, you know, you've got like 6 hours to basically write a jingle before they come around and they pick up the jingle. The jingle producers would come around to all the jingle houses and pick up the you know, the dailies, and then they would decide who got the cut. And it's a very super competitive business, you know. So Al walked me into that. I actually went in and I played with because Al had asked me to play bass with TSO at the end of 2001. And I love the TSO. I love it so much. And I would have done it, except I was so sick. I was literally so physically sick on that World Needs Hero tour. I had to take some time off. Little did I know I was going to break up 2 minutes later. I kicked myself over that one. But, you know, you make the decisions you know at the time, you know. But Al, so we did the World Needs a Hero record together. And it's interesting. So we cut that record at A&M out in Hollywood, and Dave had come back home to Phoenix for like a week for some personal business. And I remember so it was me, Jimmy, and Al, Jimmy DeGrasso and Al, and and Bill Kennedy, who had worked with Motley Crue, among others. He was engineering the records, and I think maybe co-producing with Dave. And I remember Al cut all the tracks, and I had never heard someone play so in time and so in the pocket to the click. I mean, it's just dead on the money. I mean, so perfect that it didn't sound like Megadeth. I mean, it needed Dave, obviously, because Dave has this swagger, you know, that's what, of course, creates the sound. But and then I remember playing this when he did the solos, you know, Al could just kind of solo over all the changes. You know, he did, I think he was at Berkeley for about a year before. I think it was there kind of when the Dream Theater guys were at Berkeley.
Yeah, when we go back in the Long Island, like I know Al for many, many years. In fact, I remember that TSO, that big song that really kicked off TSO was originally on a Sabotage record.
Yes. Yeah, no, he told me the story, and he said, he goes, you know, rather than, you know, I think he told me the story. He said, you know, that was the first Sabotage record that like went gold in a long time because of that Christmas Sarajevo. And then, of course, 400,000 housewives returned it because they went, oh, wait, this is a heavy metal record. and he said how Paul O'Neill and Jason Flom at Atlantic Records, instead of looking at it as a failure, they saw, you know what, we got this is a success because we have a song that everybody likes. So it's interesting how what could be perceived as, oh my God, they returned all these records. They went, why did they return them? And they saw it was because that one song, and then they put the suits and ties on Sabotage and spun it into TSO. And I mean, my God, I mean, look at the
it's a Christmas tradition now every year, you know.
Unbelievable, yeah. So, and the interesting thing about that gig, though, is I remember there was an EMT who was working the show, the Megadeth show at Irving Plaza that night, and he offered to take us down to Ground Zero. And so me and Dave went. Al did not want to go, but me and Dave went with this EMT and drove right down to, you know, basically the scene you saw on CNN.
It's heavy down there.
We were right there, and I mean, just a moment. There was a smell in the air of just the smoldering stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go too deep in it because I know it's a sensitive issue. That it affected, but to really see that, because you know, a month earlier, 3 weeks earlier, we were in Seattle and we had a night off. And I remember I went to go see two movies. I saw American Pie and Rockstar with you know, Mark Wahlberg, because we were one of the fluff bands, I'll call it, because we were advertised as one of the bands. They shot that at the Sports Arena in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was there.
And Megadeth was advertised on the radio as, hey, come see Megadeth perform on the set of this movie that was being filmed. So we were part of the draw to get the people there to fill the arena for the movie. So I wanted to go see the movie. You know, I haven't watched part of it be filmed that night, you know, so I loved it. It was cool. And then I remember that next morning, Dave was calling me going, oh my God, turn on the TV. You're not going to believe, you know, what was happening with, you know, the planes and the buildings and stuff. So then we left the country that night. Our show in Seattle was canceled at the House of Blues. We left the country, went over to Vancouver. And I tell you, that was a weird feeling, leaving the country, because obviously all the planes were grounded. You know, you leave the country, you don't know if you're going to be able to get back. You know, there was just a lot of unknown. It was unknown about the whole thing. So it was the World Needs a Hero was as a result of that, for sure, 9/11, you know, was a very challenging tour to do. Every day kind of going, are we, you know, I guess kind of like now with the pandemic, it's like, you know, is the tour going to get canceled? Is it going to be postponed? What's going to happen? So we kind of lived through that during that cycle. But, you know, Al, I learned a lot from Al in the band. And one of the things that he really taught me was about singing and playing in halftime. Remember, we were in the back lounge of the bus, and I think there was a Don Henley video that was on, and they were singing that song, in a New York minute. Right? And he was saying, he goes, you'll watch these singers. They singing in halftime. You know, now he's got his thick Brooklyn accent, his Bensonhurst accent. And he taught me about, you know, instead of counting in like 1, 2, 3, 4, like, but instead of counting in halftime, like, dum, and kind of where the groove is in that, right? And so I started applying that even to things like when we were on stage, you know, playing like Holy Warriors, you know. Like, right? Kind of like counting it like that. and feeling how it sat with DeGrasso's, how he was playing the drums and where this pocket was. And Jimmy and Al, of course, very educated, skilled musicians, had done a lot of records, a lot of studio work. Al had done a ton of studio work in New York as he was getting the TSO gig and then even coming into the Megadeth gig. So I learned a lot of just, musicality from Al. So we kind of like me and Marty Friedman, me and Al became really good buddies and still are to this day. So it was a lot of fun traveling with him and making music with him.
I worked with Al. I did a video back in the day. It was interesting. Went back in the golden age of music videos. Got contracted to do a video for a band called Vortex from Japan, and it was like a Japanese project. These two guys are very well known in Japan, and they had Al playing guitar and Stephen Piercy from Rat doing vocals, and we did the video on a rooftop in Lower Manhattan. It was. The Japanese record label, they had all the money.
It makes sense. Al did a lot of that. In fact, Al told me about how he was out with Dee Snider, post Distant Sister. He had Widowmaker.
Sure. That was a great band.
Yeah. So they take turns driving the van because they're literally driving around the country in the van, and just the good times that he had doing it. And I love that about Al because, I had been, I remember Al came over to my house here in Scottsdale and he looks around at, everything and he goes, wow, not bad for a part-time job, because, in Megadeth, I was able to do it full time and I never had to do any side work or any side gigs or anything. But it's interesting how when Megadeth disbanded in 2002, Al he told me, he goes, so listen, brother, here's how this works. You start saying yes to pretty much everything. You just say yes to stuff. Better to be double booked than underbooked. And I learned a lesson quick because I said no to a couple of things, and boy, the phone stops ringing quick, And so I just started saying yes. It's like just sure, Temple Brutality, all these different things that I did. The phone rang. I said sure. I'd fly across the country. I'd go in the studio. I'd plug in. I'd record. I'd make records, and and better to be just like this. Hey, you want to come on in some Sunday end of November and do a show? Sure. You say yes because here we are. You don't know what's happening in 2 months, but what the hell? I said yes to Drew. We're hanging out, and you just do it. And then you're in the room, and the conversation happens, and you make new friends, and this is how life works. It's certainly how the entertainment business works. And you be agreeable and go along with it, and get in the room and bring a bass, bring a camera, whatever.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, Stephen, thank you, man.
Thank you, man.
You want to shout anybody out on this Sunday?
Nah, I'm just enjoying this. I got no one to shout out today.
All right. Thank you, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
See you, man.
Well, there you go. Hey, listen, that was great, man. And, we time flies when you're having fun.
It does. Sure does.
I want to thank you.
Do a half hour of these because you agree to a half hour and 2 hours later, here you are. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I was trying to tell you. I was like, just trust me on this.
Yeah. Well, look, I think guys like you and me, we can pretty much bullshit for a half hour about damn near anything. And the fact that we've gone for 2 hours, look, the fans have been very gracious, and you're
Thanks for reminding me, Sid. A super chat question. Thank you. I spaced. Jay, thank you.
That's a good question. I'm seeing it right.
Let me read it out. Who played drums on the KC? How do you pronounce it?
Casey McMacken. Yep.
McMacken Holy Wars demo. I think it's Chuck, but everyone I talk to says Nick because they don't think Chuck could have done it.
No, it was Chuck. You were right, Jay. It is Chuck. So we started writing the initial songs that would become Rest in Peace. We started it at the end of the So Far So Good So What tour. It was me, Dave, and Chuck Beeler. Jeff was no longer in the band, Jeff Young. So we went into a studio. In fact, I have the demos here, and it's funny because I have it written down. We went into there was a studio called Amigo Studios in North Hollywood, and it was most famous for producer Michael Wagner did a ton of his work there, like a lot of records and all this kind of stuff. Sure. But at this point, Michael had left there. The place was pretty run down and dilapidated. So we had a producer named Garth Richardson, and he stuttered, so he'd always call himself Garth Richardson. Yeah, and he went on to make a lot of great records after that.
I think he did Rage Against the Machine, right?
Yeah, he's wonderful, man. And so we recorded Holy Wars, Tornado, what became the Tornado of Souls. We did the music for it, and then Rust in Peace, the Polaris, which at the time was just called Polaris. And Chuck, it was me, Chuck, and Dave, and in fact, Garth helped kind of create that middle section. Again, I'm not plugged in here, but that middle section of Holy Wars. He's the one who suggested to me that I play that in like a halftime. Right? Kind of create more of a bass line rather than just playing exactly what the guitars did, sort of picking up half the amount of notes and playing it as the bass part. So then we went over to Track Records, also in North Hollywood, and that's where Casey McMacken mixed the demo. So you're right, Casey was part of that. Now Casey engineered the Peace Sells record. He engineered under the producer Randy Burns, who Steve Sinclair at Combat Records brought Randy in to produce the record. But Casey really got the heart and soul of Megadeth. I mean, I remember, tracking, cutting the bass parts, and Casey's over there fucking headbanging, rocking out, and going, fuck yeah, like he was just in the room, he was there, he was part of it. So we love Casey, and that's why we kept him on to mix that 3-song demo.
You know what? I got one. How much fun was this band?
Dude, super awesome. Yeah.
I mean, this looks to me like this looked fun, man.
So a friend of ours, Mark Abatista, who's a music business lawyer,
let me say also, for those that don't know, this is the band Hail.
Hail, yes, it's called Hail. So
Hail. Mark
called me up and he said, hey, man, I want to go to South America. I'd love to use Andreas Kisser, who was from Sepultura. And I said, well, funny thing is, I had just done a jam at the NAMM show with Ripper, who's there on the right. And I said, look, Jimmy DeGrasso, and Mark also represented Jimmy DeGrasso, who's there on the left. So I said, look, there's the band. So we met sight unseen down in Santiago, Chile, at one of the a rock heavy metal bar down there. We rehearsed for a day, and then we played a show. We actually kind of played a secret unannounced show. Then we played the show that was announced, and it was just us doing covers, man. We played Maiden and Sabbath and Motorhead and a bunch of stuff. We played a Sepultura and a Megadeth song, some Judas Priest stuff, and it was just super cool. We did like a 5-city tour of Chile, which is a beautiful, wonderful country, and then we went to Europe. Then we went to, I think there we are. We're actually doing an interview in Santiago at that radio station there.
And the band was a 4-piece, correct?
4-piece, yeah. We did a run across Scandinavia too. We did 4 or 5 cities in Norway, and actually DeGrasso, I think, was playing with Alice Cooper at the time. So we had Roy Mayorga come in.
Wow,
play with us on that.
Roy Boy, our guy from New York.
Yep, we played. I think again 4 or 5 cities in Norway. We played, I think, The Rock in Denmark. We had Hank Sherman from Merciful Fate come out and join us and jam with us, and then we played a couple shows across Sweden and Finland and went home. It was that band was a lot of fun because it was all just covers. It just
reeked of fun to me. Like,
it was so cool.
And every picture I saw, you guys are smiling and having fun, man.
Well, it's funny because on Abatista's email, he signed off one day, and when he put Hail, kind of like Hail the Metal, and I go, dude, that's the fucking band name right there, Hail with an exclamation point. He goes, really? I said, I'm telling you, dude, Hail the Metal.
That's great.
So it's funny how these names come up, Altitudes and Attitude. I was just sitting in the studio with Frank, and I said, what do you think about Altitudes and Attitude? And I was thinking like a song title, and then it became the band name, and same with the Lucid. We're sitting in the studio, and I said, guys, what do you think about Lucid for a band name? And then Drew added the on the front. And I said, it just kind of seems like it feels lucid in here, and that's how. So I've come up with a lot of band names just kind of in the room.
One of the great joys of doing this show and sort of the unexpected success that it has is it has exposed me to doing my homework, because I take it seriously. I'm fortunate that the show has a good fan base, and it's become my job in a lot of ways.
Right.
And I've been exposed to so much, you know, doing my homework, so much stuff that I've would never have come across my radar screen. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, you know, and Altitudes and Attitudes is one of those things, like doing my homework for Frank's show. And I was like, I fucking love this, man. And I really love that stuff you guys did. And even the Lucid now, like I listened to that today. I'm like, this is really great.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and you know what's funny about all these things, and you know, you go back to Frank Bello, and I love Frank. You know, when we started doing bass clinics together on the Big Four shows, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax, you know, I said to him, I said, why don't we write some songs to have some of our own, be some of our own, you know, music for these clinics, and that's where Altitudes and Attitudes started. I wrote the song called "Here Again," which was kind of a riffy thing. It was kind of meant to be a clinic track, and then I wrote a lyric, and Frank sang it, and that became that. And then Frank brought in "Tell the World," which is kind of a softer rock track, as well as Booze and Cigarettes, which kind of defined. Yeah, Booze and Cigarettes kind of defined the sound of Altitudes and Attitudes.
That's the one. Yeah.
Kind of like how Megawind is for the Lucid. You know, there's sort of this defining that's the benchmark of what it is.
Sure.
What I love about that with Frank is I realized with Frank is we were working on that record, which we worked on the full length over the course of a couple years, a couple songs at a time. You know, there's this whole other side of Frank Bello that I did not know. And I learned about his father. I learned about his brother. I learned about a lot of the kind of some of the things he had struggled with. In his
book. His book is heavy, man. His book is heavy.
And, you know, that's why, you know, and I realized he needed kind of a wingman to do that with him. And that really became kind of my intention with that, is like, you know, Frank, you know, because we're in these bands for all these years together, Megadeth, Anthrax. I said, you know, one thing I learned is, you know, don't fight within your band, dude. Your band is what it is. Your role is defined. That's what you do in that band. But that's why we come over here and we can do these things like Altitudes and Attitude over here. And we're not leaving our bands. We're not going solo. We're just doing this thing over here. And it looked good because it was the two of us together. It had a nice feel to it. Yep. And then we started talking about his memoir. And I said, dude, Joel MacGyver's the guy. You know what I mean? Because he's now the editor of Bass Player Magazine. He understands us as bass players.
He speaks the vernacular.
Yeah, he does. And that's why, you know, with his book, it's, you know, his book is largely, and I've asked my son to get it for me for Christmas, because it's always like, what do we get, Dad? And I'm like, tell you what, give me Frank's book. So I'm intentionally not reading it until
it's a good read. It's a good read.
Santa brings it to me for Christmas. But you know, for Frank, the book and A&A, these are all part of his sort of story. Not just as a Megadeth or as an Anthrax guy, rather, but away from that, and to hear his voice, because I could feel he needed to speak outside. You know, in Anthrax, you know, it's Charlie and Scott's band. They formed it, and you know, I know the struggles that people have to get a voice inside of these groups. And so I'm so happy for Frank that he not only gets to still be an Anthrax, of course, but that he gets to have these other outlets now to sort of tell his story.
Yeah, well put, man. And Frank Bello is one of the kindest souls in a sea of, you know, in a quagmire of crap. You know,
the image of Frank, of course, is you know, we see and that's kind of what we think of Frank. I got to know a very different guy, and I'm glad that those other sides of him are being told now. You know,
Ben Lejeau says, by the way, is Dave a vampire? When is he going to look old? I guess it's that Arizona weather of yours down there.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's that, and you know, I've you know, tried to have good, clean living now for the last several decades of my life. You know, in fact, when we finish here, I'm going to the gym. You know, get on my bike and ride down to the gym. So.
And you know, I guess this sort of ties in because I know a little bit about the geography. And do you keep in touch with the guys from Flotsam and Jetsam? Thanks for introducing me to them in '87. I know they're from down there as well, right?
Yep. I do. It's funny when we came through here on the Killing Is My Business and even early Peace Cells dates. There's a club here, a heavy metal bar called the Mason Jar that we all played in, and Flotsam would always open for us. And that's when I got to meet Jason And Jason had a house, and they'd throw the best parties, man. It's like, you know, they had the scene dialed there. It was great. And then when Jason got the gig, of course, in Metallica, you know, again, I knew another side of Jason that probably most people didn't know. And of course, he had to assume a role inside of Metallica, you know, not only as the you know, the one to follow the mighty Cliff Burton, but I knew Jason very much as a leader, because he was pretty much the leader of the band. He's the guy who really had the business sense. So as I saw,
he pulled that sled.
He did. So as I saw him being in a different role in Metallica, you know, there's a part of me when he departed the band, I understood it. I was like, yeah, because I know a guy who wants to be, he's a leader in his own right, you know. And you know, he did a Gigant tour with us in 2013 where he had his own band, Newstead, again. Of course, the trick is when you've been in the biggest band in the world, not to mention heavy metal, to go back to the beginning and start over. You know, I saw Jason doing it for the love and the passion of it, but, you know, there's got to be a part of him that he just goes, man, do I really want to go back down to the bottom and start all over? I know, because I've done it with a bunch of my groups, you know, and now I
saw him here in New York, and it was very obvious that he was footing the bill also.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're footing the bill, you're paying for it all, and you're just kind of doing it all again. And so, you know, so God bless Jason. You know, he's been at the bottom, he's been to the top, he's done everything in between. And I just love the guy as a friend. He's you know, and the other guys, yeah, you know, AJ or AK rather, and my friend Steve Conley, I introduced him to the gig to get the gig in Flotsam. He was the guitar player in F5 with me. So you know, Steve and I have remained good friends, and
those guys, Flotsam is still out there doing it, man. They're still grinding.
Ken Mary, I love that Ken Mary is now playing drums with them. You know, Ken, I met him when he was on the P-Cells tour. He was the drummer in Alice Cooper's band on the Constrictor tour when they took Megadeth out with us, or with them. That was in House of Lords, and so Ken and I have done a bunch of stuff together, and you know, so I'm happy to see him out working and gigging again with Flotsam.
Yeah. Hey, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It was great. I mean, I like personally, I really, I do a lot of these, man. I've done 170 of these in a year and a half, and it's rare that I do a show like this that I just really personally, really enjoy doing and connecting with the guest, and really, it just was a smooth show, and I just want to thank you, man.
Cool, thank you, Drew. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Anybody you want to shout out on the way out?
You know, thank you, everybody. You know, it's I've had a real career, the ups and downs and everything in between. You know what I mean? And it's you know, that's what it is, and it's you know, so I'm always thankful to everybody around the world who's there with us. You know, we leave our music behind, of course, for everybody to enjoy, and you know, there's always stuff in the pipeline. You know, that's kind of how I am. I'm a guy who just always kind of keeps new stuff. And there's always more to come, and that's the beauty of it. You know, we create until we die. You know.
Thank you, David. I'll talk to you soon, man. Hey, and when I go visit my mom in Scottsdale in a couple months,
let's hang out. Yeah, let's do it.
We'll have dinner again.
Please look me up. I appreciate it.
I will. Take care now.
See you, man. Bye.
Bye. Come on now. Who's the luckiest guy in the world, huh? This guy right here. I get to do something that I really love doing, and today is just one of those days, man. Woo! What a great show. And you know, I got to bring Sid the Kid on real quick, but I want to shout out the women in the pit. We have an event coming up on Saturday, December 18th. It's our holiday event. It's going to be at Generation Records. It's free. Everybody is invited. So Lori Dawn and all the women in the pit, this is happening. Please come through. I will have the second printing of the New York Hardcore Chronicles Volume 1, 1980 and 1989. And Scott Helland is playing with his Guitar Me of One. It's going to be a fun afternoon. It starts at 5 o'clock. So there you go regarding that. Hold on. We're going to stay on for a minute here. Let me bring. That's right, Lori. We create and then we die. It was an amazing show. It's nice to come back, you know, and do one of do one of these, every once in a while. Come on, with a real banger, man. Yeah, Lori Dawn, you're gonna be there, right? At the event. Hold on. Hey, bro.
What's up, Drew?
Sid, thanks for being so patient, man.
Honestly, this is one of the best shows, Drew.
It was really good, man.
Look, being a bass player is all about the bass. That's all it was about, bro.
And
bass makes the booty move.
He's such a professional and a good dude, and like just a teacher. His temperament was so good, man. Once in a while, I tell you, we hit one out of the park, and today was one of those days, Hey, I know we were going to do record of the week, but why don't we save it?
Nah, you had me. I waited 2.
All right, we're going to do it, ladies
plus,
and gentlemen, boys and girls. Here we go. Sid the Kid. Let me clear the deck. Record of the week. It's not over till it's over. Here we go. Album of the week. Bam.
Boom, motherfucker.
There you go.
Boom. And there's a hilarious tie-in, Drew, that we're going to say that you told me, and even
I know. This is great. I got a great tie-in on this record. You're going to love this. All right, go ahead.
Making this up.
Go
ahead.
So,
ladies and gentlemen, after all this time, we always save the best for last, don't we? So obviously you can see here, this is UK Sub's first album that was released, I believe, on September 14th, 1979. This is recorded from May 29th to June of the same year. They recorded this, I believe, at Kingsway Recorders Limited in London. And obviously, RCA, I remember Gem, which was a subsidiary of RCA, put this out. And honestly, if you don't know about this band, you don't know shit about punk rock. And obviously, this band itself, they were one of the legitimate first wave of punk rock that came out in 1976. Charlie Harper even having an R&B, blues background. That was his thing before he started UK Subs. You have all the hits. You have CID. You have I Live in a Car, Tomorrow's Girls, Rockers.
I Live in a Car.
Crash Course, Stranglehold, which was that one single that came out that really just blew that whole record up in general. This record alone even charted up to, I believe, number 12 on the UK charts that year. Like, that's how big of an impact this record had. They sold, I believe, even like when it first came out, first 20,000 copies were printed on blue vinyl. It actually reached number 21 on the UK album charts. And
you ever see one of the blue vinyl ones?
I have it. I have that record.
Oh yeah.
It's rare.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that this band to this day, we're 2021, 26 albums.
Yeah.
26 albums this band has put out.
Hey, do you know that every record is a letter of the alphabet with them?
Yeah.
Did you know that? And they made it to Z now?
And I mean, a little quick weird tie-in. They're right now currently on tour in the UK. My butt is heading over to England starting on Thursday.
It was a Sid pick. Sid picked this.
Yes, I picked it.
Sid picked this record, not me.
I'll say this just to get out of the way. I had an idea with Drew to pick a specific record with the guests, but we didn't know what was up with it.
Let me tell who's still out there. Let me tell you what happened today. What happened today was David Ellefson was a little concerned about coming on the show, and he didn't want to come on for very long. He did not want to talk about Megadeth. He certainly didn't want to talk about the incident that happened with him online, all that drama. And he really was saying, I'm really limiting my exposure. I'll give you 45 minutes. And
it ended up being 2.5 hours later.
So I talked to Sid and decided, if he's only on for 45 minutes, let's do album of the week after he's off the show. Well, wouldn't you know it, David comes on the show and it's a home run. And it's because of you people. Seriously. It's because of the chat room and all you people that watch this show. Seriously, man. Made him feel really, really, really at home and really good, man. And God bless you. I'm proud of you.
Hey, I'm proud of you too, Drew.
You know, but just everybody out there in the chat room, man, just really made him feel at home here. And then, you know, so that's why we're finally getting to this now. But you know, I have 2 words about this record. Two words. Nikki Garrett, bro.
Yep, and obviously, you know, like a ton of people, I believe Paul Canty, Troy McLean did contribute some to photography on this record.
Yep.
I believe Bob Broglia engineered it. I'm not sure exactly who produced the album. Actually, no. It was John McCoy who actually produced this record too. I mean, this is like, honestly, if you were a quote unquote punk rocker, even in the 80s, this was like that record that you had to listen to.
Dude, I saw the UK subs in 1981 and Charlie Harper was like, you know,
73 years old.
Nikki Garrett. So,
73 years old.
I saw the UK subs with Nikki Garrett.
Yep. Like they played like pre-pandemic. They did 2 nights at Bowery Electric, sold both of them out, like a matinee and a night show.
I saw that. I was there.
It was amazing. Like just the fact that I'm privileged enough to even go to England in a few days to see them 3 more times.
Well, let's blow some minds here. Let's blow some minds here. Charlie Harper's uncle.
Wait. Drum roll.
Does anybody know who Charlie Harper's uncle is? Right? And I know people can scramble and go look it up. You want your mind blown? This guy he's his nephew. Charlie Harper's uncle. Does anybody know who Charlie Harper's uncle is?
They don't know. Uh-oh.
You probably just looked it up. Yes.
You probably did. Son of a
Cesar
bitch.
Romero. Cesar Romero is Charlie Harper's uncle. Could you imagine?
Ain't that some shit?
That is wild. That is wild.
It's fucking It's fucking kooky.
Mind blown, right?
Right?
What's up, Larry the Hunter? How psyched are you, Larry? You got some great shows coming up with Kings Never Die. Come on now. Getting out there with Life of Agony. Come on now. Yep.
You know, some people have the more you know moment.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, you're psyched, man. Good for you. Kings Never Die. You guys deserve it, man. You got a hard-working band. Yeah, right. Charlie Harper's uncle's the friggin' Joker. Yeah.
The original Joker.
The original Joker. He was awesome. Yo, dude wouldn't shave his mustache off for the Batman. So
yeah, because you can see in the photo, he's got a bunch of it right there. He's like, oh, fuck this shit.
He was like the best Joker, man. You know?
Yeah. Look, as campy as the show was, it had its moments.
You know who Joker I really liked, and he never really got his due, was Jared Leto. You know, I liked him a lot as the Joker. I thought he was a cool Joker, man, and we never really got. I hated that Joker movie, man. I hated that thing, man.
No, it's only until he blew De Niro's brains off.
Yeah, I didn't like all that. Too violent for me, man.
Like, I loved it.
Yeah, well, there you go. Gonna have Lilker on soon? We had Lilker on twice. Do we need to bring Lilker on again? I'll tell you what's in the works. Charlie Benante. Charlie Benante coming on to do a Jaws show. And I got something cooking that's really interesting. We're going to do a side trip show with a guy named Peter Leeds. His son, Philip Leeds, is one of my best friends. He was the best man at my wedding. And yes, even I was married once.
Even me.
Yeah, Philip Leeds. Yeah, Max Norman. Yeah, that's a good one. But we're going to bring Peter Leeds on. Peter Leeds is a classic, old school rock and roll manager. He managed Roberta Flack, the Fabulous Poodles, and in their heyday, Blondie. So it'll be great to have him to talk about the real heyday of Blondie and the record business in those days. And yeah, that's a good one. Max Norman. Yeah, I'm down. I'm down with Max. No, Jason's never been on, and that's a good suggestion. I've never really thought about getting Jason on. You know, I don't regret. I do. I had a great marriage while it lasted, and I'm still good friends with my ex-wife. You know,
with me 10 years. Whoosh.
Yo, I want to shout out my girlfriend. Yo, I got to shout out my girlfriend in Astoria, Queens, man. I hope you're feeling better, hon, and you're awesome. You know, yeah, killing me softly.
If she could deal with you, she deserves the medal.
Killing me softly with his, yep. Vampira. I want to shout out my girlfriend Vampira in Astoria, Queens. You know, I have a good girlfriend these days.
You're such a mush, Drew.
I'm a lucky dude. Yep.
You're a mush.
Yeah, Gajowski. I gotta reach out to Jason. It's no problem. Get Bill Ward on. That's a good idea. I'm connected to Bill Ward. I'm telling you, man, that Joker movie, I really disliked it. I thought it sucked, man. I disliked it a lot. I don't like really violent movies. I don't go to the movies to like be entertained by violence.
Well, how come A Clockwork Orange existed? I mean, come on now.
Well, yeah. Yep. Nick from YDL would never come on my show. Nick from YDL doesn't even acknowledge my existence when I walk in a room. He's not coming on the show. Your cat is named Vampira. Black dress moves in a blue movie. Grave robber from outer space. Well, your Poland enemy trembles from your outstretched arm. Tremble so wicked. 2-inch nails. Micro waist with a slender white female face. Inclination eyebrows to there. Mistress to the horror kids. Cemetery of... Take off your shabby dress.
Googie.
Come labor. Yo, I've tried to get... Yo, Erie won't come on. I've talked to Erie. Erie's like one of these guys that doesn't do like, Zoom calls. And I've tried. Yeah, Frank Miller. Yeah, you think? Okay, Hegs. You think? Yeah, Neil would be good. I could reach out to Neil. Jeff from Cold is Life, sure. You'll message who? Erie? Erie won't do it. I've talked to Erie. You message him. I've got everybody fucking else on from every band he's been in. Vampira. Take off your shabby dress. Come lay beside me. Come a little bit closer. Come a little bit closer. Come a little bit closer. Come a little bit closer to this. Yep. Arthur Googie. Carol King. What did we hear last night? I was with Homegirl last night in the cafe in Astoria, and we heard, not You're So Vain. No, that's Carly Simon. What's the Carol King? I was like, is that Carol King? Oh, I feel the earth move under my feet. Yeah, I heard that last night.
True. I think you might be getting signs of COVID because you're getting delirious.
Woo! Show's coming up on 3 hours, bro. 3-hour show. Tony Scaglione? Yeah, sure. Doug Pinnick? I wish. I produced the Dogman King's X video. I'd love to get Doug on. Chris Poland? Yeah. Barney from Napalm Death? Yeah. Sure. Yep. Why not?
Tez from Discharge.
I gotta
lot.
I gotta talk.
He's got a history.
I gotta talk to what's his name. Our boy JJ's in Discharge now.
Well, I'm gonna see them, Drew. I'm seeing them in 2 weeks. Just saying.
Yeah. Hey, I want to remind everybody that this Wednesday, Mark Nichols on the show from MAD. This is going to be interesting. Mark is an old school, one of the old original punk skinhead thugs. MAD tour booking. He's been connected with a lot of bands. Very smart guy. This is going to be a very cool show on Wednesday. So don't be scared. Yeah, reach out to listen. Yeah, I'd love to have Tez on. Would I understand with his thick accent?
Actually, you can. No, trust me, Tez, you actually can't understand him, Drew. Wadi's the one that almost all of you can understand.
Yeah, Wadi's tough and he talks really fast. Listen, Scott, we'll get Scott back on at some point. I talked to Scott. Yeah, we'll get Scott back on. You know, for sure. Duff McKagan, you think? That's like on my personal like wish list to have get Duff McKagan on this show. You know, Becky Bondage from Vice Squad. Now we're going deep, aren't we? Come on now.
I'm gonna see them on the 18th, Drew.
Where the fuck are you going that you're seeing all these people?
England for 3 weeks. That's why I'm not gonna be on Posey every
Well,
freaking show.
Is there one of those punk festivals happening?
It's if I'm not mistaken, they may actually have jumped off that bill.
What's that big show they have over there?
Rebellion. That's in August. This is gonna be coming in August. Like a shitload of American bands. Even the Cro-Mags, Harley's Cro-Mags are on that now. Every band you could possibly think of is doing that festival right now.
Paul Stone, where are you? Where are you, Paul?
This is Stoney. Stoney played in the Take on the second Take tour with Announced
Oh, hey, Stoney, I didn't realize it was you.
Nah,
yeah, man.
The original Sir talks a lot.
Yeah, okay. Mike Muir from Suicidal, you think? I actually talked to Luigi about the original Suicidal bass player about coming on, but he's sort of, you know what it is? Unless you've seen the show or get it, you know, lucky learner. What's up, Sean Brennan? Guitar player in Antidote NYHC. You get ready for the big show, Sean? We're rehearsing on Friday, and I'm picking up Zum's Head for you. So just a reminder for those that may not be in the know that Wednesday, December 5th, and no, DJ, it is not DJ Sid the Kid. Who's DJing, Sid?
It's the Gov himself. Frankie Too Far is going to be doing it.
Yep.
Because I will be in Bristol that same night.
Sunday, December 5th. Antidote the Take. Antidote NYHC featuring Sean Brennan.
There you go.
On what gear? On what gear, Sid?
On what?
On what gear?
What do you mean, what gear?
Yes, Fryette gear. Sean Brennan will be playing the Fryette gear, a.k.a. Zum's Head. Yeah, you got that.
And that's
right.
what she said.
All right, Paul. Yeah, for sure. I'll PM you. Listen, the DRI guys, they don't want to come on. I heard that they don't want nothing to do with New York hardcore. I reached out to Dude ghosted me. They're not feeling New York hardcore and DRI. I tried. If you know them, reach out. Be like, yo, what's your beef with New York hardcore? Zum's Head. That's one of our new songs. It's called Zum's Head, actually. So,
and that can be taken in so many contexts.
Yeah. This is true. Hey, just a reminder. I forgot to mention that. Oh, wait. Thanks for reminding me. Get Kevin Castle on, butchered his last. Get Kevin Castle Scondato on, butchered his last name. Hey, funny you should say that. That show's booked already. We're doing a Castle Heights reunion show. That's happening. Big Castle Heights reunion show with special guests and all that. That's happening. I could even tell you the date. We don't have the flyer yet. It's way in the future. It's Sunday, February 27th is the Castle Heights reunion show. Rat from Verucas. Didn't Rat sing for Discharge for a minute?
Yeah, he sang in Discharge for a bit, and then JJ took over after Rat.
We love JJ. JJ's our boy. He's from Jersey. He's a scum punk who slept in Tompkins Square Park. We love that
and
guy.
Survived.
Yeah, no, JJ's our boy, man. We love JJ. Yeah, DRI, yo, yeah. DRI dissed us, Hags. Chris Doherty, I hear, is not doing great. He's okay. We have, speaking of Gangrene, the Gangrene connection here would be this. The Boston, Not LA 40th anniversary show is Sunday, December 12th. And Brian Betzger from Gangrene is going to be on that show with us. And that's a guy that doesn't do interviews. So we're looking forward. Randy from Lamb of God has been on the show. Look for it on YouTube, my main man. Been there, done that. We did that one. Been there, done that. Ralphie Boy, I don't know, I'm not sure if Ralphie Boy really, I hate to say it, is enough of a draw or has enough going on these days. We try to bring people on that have something going on right now, So, yeah, Bob Sensi's coming on as well. So there you go. All right, Sid, let's go eat some dinner. We're at the 3-hour mark. This was a 3-hour show.
Oy vey.
Talk about a 3-hour cruise, right?
Yep. Yeah, but we all survived it. That's the key.
It was great. Today was a great show. All right, Sid, have a good night. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, later on, guys.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Incredible 3-hour show. Gene Simmons. You think? You think, man? How I would love to have Gene Simmons on the show. Thank you, Paul Stoney. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to playing with your boys a week from today. As you can hear the siren out there, they're coming for me. I got to get going. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Until then, do good things and good things will come to you.